6.
Sounds good.
Test.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Rachel, hurry up. That one to myself. That's good for you.
Thanks,
Yes.
Okay.
That's appreciated.
All right, everyone, we'll get started. Welcome to the March 13th, 2025 BAR small meeting. My name is Lindsay Van Slambrook. I'll be your chairwoman this evening. Fellow board members present are Daryl Cobb, Laura Altman, Bill Turner, and Becky Finno. And city staff present are Frankie Pinto, BARS administrator, and Travis Scally, senior preservation planner. The order of tonight's meeting will be as follows. For each application, we'll get an introduction overview of the project from city staff for the benefit of the board and the public. This will be followed by the applicant's presentation. The applicant will have 10 minutes to speak. Please approach the podium if you're the applicant and state your name first and last for the record. And anyone speaking for the applicant, so owners, designers, consultants, architects, should speak during the applicant presentation versus during public comment. By ordinance, the board can ask questions of the applicant at any time. By custom, we do so on the heels of the applicant's presentation. This will be followed by public comment. Any written public comment that was timely submitted has been provided to the board in advance of the meeting. And actually, we received no public comment this week. Otherwise, if you are in the audience and speaking on a project as a member of the public, please raise your hand. I'll recognize you, approach the podium, state your name first and last for the record, and your address if you live nearby. Public comment will be followed by city staff comments and recommendations. And once you've heard from city staff and the public, the applicant will have a 5-minute period of time to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment or in the city staff comments and recommendations. Once we've heard the applicant response, public comment and the applicant's presentation will be closed, and we'll move into board discussion and a vote. The results will be posted online at the city's website. No items have been withdrawn or deferred this evening. If there are any students present, once you've stayed for the allotted period of time, please approach Frankie and she will sign whatever documentation you need. Please keep in mind the purview of this board is architecture only. So any comments related to stormwater, zoning, livability concerns are not within the purview of this board and will not be voiced here. And please turn off your cell phones. All right, we'll get started. Agenda item A1 is review of the minutes from the February 13th, 2025 meeting. I make a motion to approve with Bill Turner's edits that were circulated this afternoon. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Bill, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. The motion passed unanimously. Agenda item 2, review of the minutes from the February 27th, 2025 meeting. I make a motion to approve with the edits that I circulated this afternoon. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Becky. With the motion to a vote.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. The motion passes unanimously. Agenda item B1 is 110 Darlington Avenue. Travis, will give us an introduction overview of the project, please.
110 Darlington is in Wagner Terrace, Council District 6. It is a category 4, group 1, circa 1927 in the historic materials demolition purview. They're requesting demolition of rear home portions of roof and windows. This is aerial. The front of the home. This is, I believe, looking north and south. Sanborn maps.
The applicant.
Hello, thank you for hearing us today. I'm here on behalf of our client, Henry Joyner, the owner of 110 Darlington Avenue. I'm a residential builder with Costa Group LLC. We're here to ask for the demolition on a partial demolition on the structure at 110 Darlington. The rear of the home, we got page 1 here. So, back up. So you got a site plan or a survey, shows the home. I guess it's not coming up here. It's hard to see it on the screen. This is the aerial view drawing, shows the rear of the home highlighted for the parts of the house that will be disturbed. Right here shows the satellite view of the roof. Small portion of the roof will be altered and taken off. there. From the front of the house, everything will remain the same all the way around soffits, et cetera, except for the very rear will remain. On the front of the house, you see we have highlighted the double window on the front. All of the windows, we are asking for the board's approval for the removal of the windows. Here are just all the pictures of the windows all the way around. This is a drawing that shows the rear of the house at the top. It's got, you know, the highlighted portions are the parts that we plan on removing for the addition. And then with the, you have the side view, the southern from the south looking northward. You can see the part of the roof and the little bit of the building that we're taking off there in the corner. There's a non-conforming porch enclosure on the left side of the picture here, and kind of a hodgepodge of bricks for different things in kind of poor shape. And you can see in the drawing down below the parts of that that we're planning on removing during the construction. Here's a drawing of the roof as it exists and what the parts that we're trying to demolish during this project. I think that's it.
Are there any questions for the applicant?
Are we allowed to ask what type of windows are going back?
I think that's at staff level.
If you approve demolition, they can go back with whatever type they want.
Right.
At staff level, we can approve a repair based on our replacement policy.
So we are only looking at allowing removal of the windows that are there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we have anyone speaking from the public?
Hey, Preservation Society of Charleston. The PSC appreciated the chance to visit the site this morning. While this proposal does not share any information on the age or condition of the existing windows, they appear to be original to the house. We are not supportive of the request for wholesale demolition of all windows and encourage studying options for repair or replacement in kind supported by a window survey. Further, the PSC encourages a lighter touch to the rear elevation to allow the corners and double gable roof line to remain intact. Thank you.
Hey, good evening. I'm Lisa Jones and I'm with Historic Charleston Foundation, and I just want to echo the comments of my friend at the Preservation Society and reiterate we are also recommending denial of the application and oppose the demolition of the windows at the rear of the structure.
Is there anyone else speaking? Okay, Travis, could you give us city staff comments and recommendations, please?
All right, staff observations. 1, windows are character defining features and should be retained. 2, rear addition does not appear on Sanborn maps, but the brick appears to match the rest of the house. 3, staff is not opposed to the right corner and portions of the roof being demolished. Staff recommendation, denial of demolition of windows and approval of demolition of rear and corner.
Thank you, Travis. Did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment or the city staff comments?
No, well, yes, as far as we agree with everything is that was said, if it's possible that that the windows could be repaired or something like that, I'm sure the client would, you know, if that's what the board rules, I'm sure that would be something we could consider
Okay,
doing.
thank you.
Thanks.
All right, public comment in the applicant presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and vote.
I assume that we're seeing the demolition of the windows because of probably what they're wanting to go back with aren't meeting the criteria for staff approval. So,
For replacement in kind.
or replacement in kind, or I know the requirements allow insulated glass in some cases if, based on the quality of the window they're putting back. I assume we're seeing this because they didn't want to meet that quality standard. Okay, all right. barring that, I'm not in favor of losing the windows. I would rather keep the original windows. Um, However, I understand that they could come back to staff and meet the guidelines for a good quality replacement window. As far as the rear of the structure, yes, it's kind of been the policy of the board lately to preserve the original form of the building and to try to keep demolitions to the rear of the house. And the building has a fairly strong form. And I'm fine with demolition occurring in the back. That's where it needs to be, because these houses need to grow to accommodate modern living, but I would like to see maybe a portion of that rear wall kept, so that you can read that original back form of the house. Like maybe an 8 or 12 inches or so.
I agree. I think that this house has some really wonderful details on it, including the fascia boards on the gable ends, the way they curve down. I think it's important to maintain those corners, both of the corners that you can be able to see from the street, including their eaves. Like you said, just 8 or 12 inches, but that would include the eave. I'm also definitely opposed to taking out the windows. These are definitely original to the house, or seem to be original to the house. And, just with our site visit, looked like they could be repaired, so I would oppose the demolition of those windows unless there's an adequate window survey and quality windows going back.
I have nothing to add.
I'm in agreement.
So are you saying you'd be in favor of the rearmost wall being like the center, the inner portion, but not
Yeah. Not the corner.
just the very back wall?
Yeah.
This
so we could
corner.
read-
Travis, can you go to the floor plan or?
That one may be easiest to see. You want to? I was maybe go back to that last slide where this one. I've got it sideways. Yeah, that one.
So I think that this corner also needs to be maintained, like don't take that whole rear portion off. That corner needs to be maintained in this corner. So not losing that. That's my opinion.
And if the building needed to come out and then step back out, it would be fine. It allows the original form of the building to read, so you know what's old and what's new. It's good preservation.
Are you able to go, Travis, are you able to go back to the Sanborn map? That was part of the applicants. We didn't see that previously. Interesting, because that back part looks so original.
It does,
Yeah,
and
it
it
looks
just keeps
very
going
original.
straight back on the north side.
Yeah.
I love emotion.
Okay. I make a motion to deny demolition of the windows. And deny. Maybe hold on, I gotta think through this.
Yeah.
Because the rear portion right now, the request is for that whole rear demolition. So I need. How about, okay, let me say.
Yeah.
I make a motion for denial of the demolition of the windows and denial and approval of partial demolition of the rear to maintain the northeast and southeast corners and yes.
Do you want to put a dimension on that?
12 inches at the
Yeah.
corners. That's always a good,
That's what
that's
always-
enough to.
8 to 12 inches or?
Just say 12. 1 foot. Enough to show that radio.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for denial of demolition of the windows and approval of partial demolition of the rear to maintain 12 inches of the northeast and southeast corner and eaves.
Yes.
All right, do I have a second to Laura's motion?
I'll second.
Bill? Put the motion to a vote. Daryl?
Yay in favor?
Becky?
A in favor.
Laura?
Yay in favor.
Bill?
Yay in favor.
Chair vote to the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 256 Devereaux Street. Travis, to give us an introduction overview of the project, please.
56 Devereaux, it is in the Wagner Terrace, Council District 6. It is unrated, circa 1957, any historic materials demolition purview. Requesting partial demolition of center portion of existing painted brick veneer, 2 existing wood double hung windows, and all gable end siding from east elevation. Existing brick corners do remain. This is the aerial. Street view. It's looking south. North.
And we'll turn it over to the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Joe Highsmith. I'm here representing the LeBlancs, who are the owners of 56 Devereaux, who you all met this morning. Figured out how to work this after some practice. 56 Devereaux, as you all know, is a brick ranch home built in 1957, split level, typical of that era. This is a photograph of front of the house. Split level occurs to the right. If you'll note that the gable end, the gable to your right, which would be the south gable, continues on down, is longer than the one on the left. And that's where the house steps down on the interior, about 3 treads. There's another shot looking from it's about all we could get of the north elevation, is it's quite close to the property line and there's a long hedge. You can't really take a picture of it. This is looking from the southeast corner. There's an existing deck and pergola that was added at some point in time, which will be removed as part of the issue. Another view of the rear of the house. Here's the existing site plan. As you can see, that north elevation, which is to the right, is quite close to the property line. Say they don't build them like they used to. This is the existing floor plan of the residence. The front the elevation that faces Devereaux, that faces the street. This is the front elevation. The existing north elevation, and here's the east elevation, which is the only area that we're asking for demolition. Removing the center portion of the brick wall, which will require the removal of 2 windows and much of the gable end. And as you all will recall, we were here previously a few weeks back and requested removing all the brick. And we've worked our way around that. So the current plan, that brickwork will remain and those 2 corners will remain expressed. South elevation, no change in it. That's it.
All right, do we have any questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Highsmith. Do we have anyone speaking from the public? All right, Travis, forgive the city staff comments and recommendations, please.
All right, Staff observation 1, the applicant has met with staff since the previous meeting. 2, the new proposal substantially reduces the impacted areas. Corners are maintained and demolition is kept below the eave. Staff recommendation is approval of demolition.
Thank you, Travis. Mr. Heisman, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the city staff comments?
I'm sorry?
Did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the city staff comments?
No, they were pretty clear and non-invasive, so I'll leave it alone.
Thank you. All right, public comment in the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
Joe has met everything that the board asked for the last time, and if no one objects, I'll make a motion for final approval as submitted.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for approval of demolition. Do I have a second to Bill's motion?
I'll second that.
All right, put the motion to a vote. Becky?
Yay, in favor.
Daryl?
Yeah, in favor.
Bill?
Yeah, in favor.
Laura? Yeah, in favor. Chair votes to the majority and the motion passes unanimous. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item 3. 41 Woodall Court. Travis, could you give us an introduction overview of the project, please?
Woodall Court is in the West Side neighborhood, Council District 6. It is unrated, circa 1935, in the historic materials demolition purview. They're requesting partial demolition, including non-historic windows, vinyl siding, front stairs, rear porch, and a portion of the rear roof. This is the aerial. Front of the home. Looking east. Looking west. Sanborn's the property.
Hello, my name is Charles Kane. I'm an architect with Form Lloyd, and I'm here representing the clients, the Roberts. So just for context, zooming back out of where we are, we're in the west side neighborhood, adjacent to President Street, where the building is outlined in a white square rectangle. We're in a strange kind of mid-block street. We are, I know this is beyond the purview of the DAR, but we are in a flood zone. And the building is currently lower than would be allowable. So BZA is our next step in getting the house raised. Also, to make things more interesting, we're in a non-conforming lot, so it's smaller than is typical. So anything that we do requires to BZA because everything is over setbacks and the lot's too small for the required current. Here's the current house, the front of it. So it is a circa 1935 Freedman's Cottage originally. But we have a bit of a ship of Theseus type situation where if the house has been rebuilt and replaced board by board over time, the question is there something still historic there? Unlike the ship of Theseus, it wasn't replaced board by board, it was kind of more hodgepodge. And so here's what we have. This is the rear. We'll go into the interior in a second, just for context, but we did try and do, and this is the side, I guess the east side of the building, on the building, and then the west side, on the first side. So we tried to do our due diligence, finding any type of historical imagery of the building. Unfortunately, we couldn't find it. However, we did talk to HCF and were able to find a little bit of documentation, which we'll look at, but we were able to tell through going into the roof that it very clearly had a fire at one point. So all the charred wood represents the front portion of the house that still has the porch, and the overbuilt kind of modern lumber looks to be post 2002, March of 2002, based on the stamp of that LVL there. So all of the roof that was beyond the porch, the original porch, seemed to be part of the unpermitted 2002 addition. And all this to say is all of these efforts were made before the current owner moved into the space. Going back to the Sanborn maps, we've documented that starting in 1944 was when they started showing up on the Sanborn maps up in the west side here. And you can tell that the porch, like most Freedman's cottages, used to run the entire length of the building. We have going up until 1973 that porch that went on the majority of the building was still there up until that point. Here's the little bit of historic research we were able to find through talking with the HCF. It did come up in the Freedman's Cottage Architectural Survey of 2000. One of the things to note is there was originally a parapet on the piazza side that you can tell is not there anymore. And even in 2000, before the fire, they did note that there were newer windows. So a little bit of, I guess, visual context. So we've got this tiny little indicator here in the plan of trying just where you can see it in the public right of way. Zooming back out, we're kind of walking backwards towards President Street and then highlighting on the left side, bottom left, kind of where you can see it in that image. More zoomed in look. So it becomes invisible if you're staring straight down. This is this large adjacent empty lot, which we note that there are plans in the works to reinstall a bunch of condo buildings that there used to be apartment buildings here up until the 70s based on the Sanborn maps. Let's see. There, a little bit of that back porch. Over, and that was another looking now on plans. You can start to see kind of in the slip between the buildings behind these trees, like a little bit of the roof there. Can't see it there. And then if you go over to Noonan Street, you do see it currently, which will be obscured once the condos. See it here between those little buildings. So this is that proposed large development in that vacant lot. And I've highlighted the site, our site. And then we're highlighted here again. Show in the SketchUp. So this is our proposed request. We are requesting for the non-historic siding. Like I said, the siding has kind of been hodgepodge over time. It's different siding depending on what side you're looking on. The windows are all fairly recently installed, it looks like, though this is before the current owner. So we're trying to bring back a little bit of the magic of it. And then the stairs will have to be demolished in order to accommodate the new elevation. And then the back porch, we're also requesting demolition. And I guess the kind of the main request is this non-historic back portion of the roof. So when we were looking at those interior images, all of this was part of that 2002, 2003 unpermitted addition.
Any questions for the applicant? When I'm looking at those pictures, does it look like they built that back roof almost on top of
It's overbuilt on top of
is it the historic roof underneath?
yes, so you kind of. There's about 8 feet of overlap of the historic roof and
Bottom left
I guess I
picture.
can't.
If you can point to these pictures, the
Yeah.
laser doesn't show,
Oh.
at least I can't see.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry about that. I
That
was
one.
overconfident with the laser visibility. This portion here is overbuilt and they've done some pretty interesting rehab of some of the framing, the roof framing that is splintered and just kind of tying it together and it's just like this artifact of what used to be there and then kind of split up the top of it.
So just to clarify, that bottom left picture, is that the historic roof on the,
Yes, yeah, so there's maybe about 8 or so feet underneath.
And that's looking to the rear of the house?
This is looking for, so I'm right here, we're looking towards the front of the house. So this front portion, once you get to this wall right here, if we were to go back outside. That wall that we were looking at on the inside is that front gable, or not front gable, but front gable of the roof.
anything else?
I have a question for staff. So have you guys found any records of any of this rear addition being permitted?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay,
But it could have been before.
but.
Even in the
What about
city?
Building permits, yeah.
So we weren't able to find record of a permit until the
We
foundation's
did not check
repairs.
with records management, I will admit. So it could be prior to previous systems.
Somebody did all this under the cloak of darkness or on the weekends.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone speaking? Yes.
Hello, my name is Anna Roberts. Along with my husband Patrick Roberts, we own 41 Woodall Court. I just wanted to mention that this is going to be our forever home where we want to raise our children. We love everyone on this street and we love Charleston and we love the charm of the city and we want to maintain that in our home. And our hope is that we can bring that back and make this our forever home. Yeah.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and board members, city staff. My name is Arthur Lawrence. I live at 212 Fishburne Street, and I'm a community activist and over 20 some odd years in this community. And the fight to make sure that we preserve the Freeman cottages and preserve cottages that in our neighborhood. And Woodall Court is a diamond in the rough. You know, they have families in there and that went through big change in Woodall Court. And we wouldn't like to see any of the exterior foundation change on this cottage. If they're gonna raise it up, like some of the cottages in the neighborhood, Freeman Cottage and different cottage was raised up and kept the existing look of the cottage. And I know on the rail of this cottage, they have almost like a deck, and the deck is in bad shape. But what they want to do, if they're gonna improve this cottage without taking away any of the exterior design of this cottage, it would be good because it would fit right into the rest of the cottages that in Woodall Court. So we have to be very careful of what we do these cottages in this neighborhood. Because right now, all those cottages are under attack in the neighborhood, try to change it and add multi-bedrooms and restrooms so they can rent it out later on down the road. So Woodall Court is a family court. And most of the family in there have kids and they love living in Woodall Court. And so we ask you to please look at it closely and make sure that it don't affect this cottage greatly to offset things in Woodall Court. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Is there anyone else speaking? All right, Travis, who give us city staff comments and recommendations, please?
All right. Staff observation 1, the non-original vinyl siding is not under BAR purview. 2, the front portion for the roof is historic with the remaining structure overframed. 3, the portion of the roof requested to be removed is not original. Staff does not object to the removal of this portion. If the front portion is altered, its age must be verified first. While the windows are character defining features, if existing windows are less than 50 years old, they are not under BAR purview. Staff recommendation is approval of demolition.
Thank you, Travis. Mr. Kane, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment, the city staff comments and recommendations?
Nothing.
Oh, no, you don't need to.
No. We're good.
Public comment and the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
I think this is a case where the form is what's so important, even though we've lost a lot of historic fabric. And so I think it's important to make sure that we're preserving that form, at least at the front. I recognize that they probably want to add significantly at the back and maybe go up to make space for a family.
Sting demo of the front.
No,
No, so I think if we can, like, in other words, I'm willing to let the back portion go. Allow approval of the demo of that roof, knowing that it's probably losing the form as long as we're keeping the front.
I tend to
Yeah.
agree. I know what's gonna happen. This is gonna end up being a camelback and it's unfortunate, but the only thing that's really left of this Freedom's Cottage, like what you said, is the front end of it. So as far as the unpermitted roof and the hardy siding and windows and steps and all that came later, and it's okay to lose those things in my mind. I would encourage and this is not, I can't require this, we can't require this, but I would encourage the owners to maybe do a little research on what the front end of the house originally looked like. It probably had a set of nice windows in the front. You know, maybe look and see if you can figure out some of the porch detailing, and maybe try to at least put the front of the house back a little bit. But that's kind of my thoughts as well.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with those comments.
I agree, but I was asking about the roof earlier because it was unpermitted work, which we know the owners had nothing to do with, but you have the original roof. Underneath the roof, we're approving demo of, which I guess it's technically the interior now, so.
It's not visible. So
Yeah. But I mean, I think I answered my own question. It's just why we want all work to be permitted, because we wouldn't have approved covering up the original roof.
Right. And, yeah, we would have never approved it. We would have still remained kind of pretty much of a pure form of a freedman's cottage before somebody got a hold of it, screwed it up.
Well, and I do appreciate that this house is getting some love. It
Yes.
needs it. Someone didn't love it, and I won't hold any of the preservation groups to this, but it's the first time I've ever heard a comment at a site visit to demo a little bit more of something.
I forgot.
We'll never hear that again, but, anyway, so yeah, I'm very glad to see that something will happen here and I agree with the comments of my fellow board members.
Can I make a motion? I make a motion for approval of demolition as submitted, with the board condition that we're retaining the front form. Just.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for approval of demolition as submitted with the board condition to retain the front form. Do I have a second to Laura's motion?
Second it.
Becky, I'll put the motion to a vote. Bill,
Yay in favor.
Gerald,
Yeah, in favor.
Laura,
Yay in favor.
Becky.
Yay in favor.
Chair votes to the majority and the motion passed unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, agenda item 411 Beans Alley. Travis, could you give us an introduction overview of the project, please?
Beans Alley. It is in the Charlestown Neighborhood Council District 8. I don't know if we have a category for that, but it is circa 1948 in the old and historic district. This is an aerial. Front of the home. Looking north. Looking south. Is a 2006 photo. And more maps.
We'll turn it over to the applicant.
Good evening, Sebastian von Marshall, architect, 43 Broad Street, Suite 200. I'd like to thank the board and the staff, Travis, for coming out this morning to take a look at this. We'll jump through this really quickly. I know we discussed this on site. 11 Beans Alley, the house is 1940s. The scope of our application is limited to the non-historic site wall on the Beans Alley side of the property. You can see it outlined in red right here. A review of some of these sandboard maps. Interesting evolution of the site. You can see over time, some walls are identified on sandboard maps, some are not. But we have the survey from 1973 dated 11th of June that clearly does not show a site wall in front of this stretch of the property. Now, there is a small stretch of historic wall that does cross the property line from 15 Beadens. That part of wall is also outside of the scope of this application. Some aerial images, some interesting historic pictures. Some context pictures showing surrounding buildings. Beans Alley. Some site pictures with a scale figure to give you some reference of that wall, which we can see right here. The wall is made up of 2 stucco piers, some ironwork, a low stucco wall in between, and then an iron gate. The reason why the gate leaves is missing is because the neighboring landscaping crew unfortunately dropped a large tree on the gate, which damaged the gate and the pier and the metalwork. But the other thing I'd like to point out in these 2 images is the clear delineation of what is in the scope of this request and what is not in the scope of this request. So again, you can see all the brick wall is not being requested for demolition, only the stucco piers and the ironwork is being requested for demolition. Some images of that site wall and some of the damage to it. You can see use of modern brick in that little site wall there, and then metalwork that's kind of apart. And then as an addendum, we've included a bunch of information. I'm not sure if it pops up, but there was a landscape plan of this property done in 1978 by Robert Chestnut. So this site wall was part of that late 70s landscape, which makes it less than 50 years old. So, that is all I have. I welcome any questions from the board. Thank you.
Any questions?
So as you said, it is your intent to maybe reuse the ironwork elsewhere later?
That's right. So we're salvaging all of the ironwork, and when we have an idea of what we're going to do on the property, we'll come back to the board.
So if we trusted you to demo and that you would reuse ironwork.
Yeah, the question is whether or not we would use it in this exact location
Right,
or,
right.
in this way on a sidewall on the front of the property, but the goal is that we would like to reuse it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you. Do we have anyone speaking from the public? All right, Travis, will you give the city staff comments and recommendations, please?
All right, staff observation 1, walls are character defining. 2, information provided by the applicant shows the wall may not be as old as originally thought. Staff's recommendation is approval of demolition.
Thank you, Travis. Mr. Von Marshall, did you want to respond to or clarify anything?
No, thank you.
All right. Public comment, the applicant presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
From site visit this morning, the columns, the knee wall, they're all heavily damaged, nothing special about them. I do like the iron, it's nice iron, so it's encouraging that Sebastian's talking about reusing that in some form on the property. So I really have no much of an issue with the demolition request.
Did you want to make a motion?
Yes, I would. I would like to make a motion for demolition approval as submitted.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for approval of demolition. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion to a vote. Becky?
Yay, in favor.
Daryl?
Yeah, in favor.
Bill?
Yeah, in favor.
Laura?
Yay, in favor.
Chair vote to the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item 5, 2 Kennedy Court. Travis, could you give us an introduction overview of the project, please?
2 Kennedy Court is the Cannonboro, Elliottboro neighborhood in Council District 6. It is unrated. This is new construction and it is in the old city district. They are requesting conceptual approval of a new single-family 3-story home. We have an aerial. This is looking east. This is looking west. This is looking unknown. We're ready for the applicant.
Evening, my name is Brian Wells, Coastal Creek Design, 501 Ransom Court, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. This project, as you can see, it's a very small lot. So we did a study of the area to see how this fit in the neighborhood, and we feel like the height that we're proposing is reasonable given the context of the adjacent houses. I don't know if you can start going through this.
The clicker's on the table if you'd like to, or I can, if you just let me know.
So it's the front view. So the lot size is 0.042 acres, very small. All right, so this is where the site plan. The house kind of back to their right, and allows for 2 parking spaces off the street. We did the turning radiuses of the cars to make sure they could get in and out of the site. So we show a full 3-story plan, which gives us about 1,600 square feet, 3 bedrooms. The front view, it's a X flood zone, so it's we can get it low to the ground. Views. This is in relation to the adjacent houses to it. 39 foot 6 inches is the height. So this one, I feel like kind of tells the story the best. The site is here. And as you come down the crosstown here, it's kind of hidden behind the trees. There is kind of a taller accessory that's located behind the this is the restaurant that's on Rutledge, and there's a pretty tall accessory here. There's another one that's not labeled on here that's about 35 feet. And then there's a cluster of houses that are full 3 stories, kind of right behind it, where you have 41, 39, 39, 41. So that kind of shows the context of it. This is DR2F. And the maximum height allowed in this district is 50 foot, and we're proposing 39'8". Give us the full 3 stories.
Any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you. Do we have anyone speaking?
Hi, I'm Lisa Jones, the Board Charleston Foundation. We reviewed the application for conceptual approval of the new single-family 3-story home at 2 Kennedy Court. Given the narrow streetscape and the lower heights of the neighboring structures, we recommend reducing the height of the proposed building to 2.5 stories instead of 3. As proposed, it's not in keeping with the context of the adjacent neighbors, and as such, it stands out. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Laurel Fay with the Preservation Society of Charleston. As proposed, this building is top-heavy and out of scale with surrounding buildings, and a 2.5-story approach would be much more sensitive in this context. Reducing the height would also rectify the overly massive proportions of the 3rd level. Finally, we suggest restudying the fenestration and window spacing to reflect the predominant patterns found along the streetscape. We ask the board to defer this application for restudy of height, scale, mass, and architectural direction. Thank you.
Is there anyone else speaking? Okay, Travis, you'll give us city staff comments and recommendations, please. After yours.
All right, bear with me as I go through these. The staff observation 1. The overwhelming height should be reduced to 2.5 stories. Kennedy Court is a small street with a variable width right of way. At this point, the width of the street is 26.8 feet. The 3-story structure shown in the height study are on Capitol, which is different context on a different private right of way to the south of the proposed building. Notes on the request for architectural merit of an additional 1/2 story. The parcels are in a height district 2.5 to 3. With the width of the right of way, the applicant is allowed 2.5 stories. The applicant is asking for an additional 1/2 story. Per the zoning administrator and legal, this applicant can ask for the additional height based on architectural merit. The applicable regulation, architectural merit, means a project that reflects exemplary architectural and urban design, utilizes the highest level of materials and finishes, and contributes to the public realm as outlined in the Board of Architectural Review Principles. On architectural design, the gabled mass and porches take cues from neighborhood. Pulling columns details appropriate for its context. That is the associated BAR principle. On urban design, BAR typically does not approve parking in the front of the dwelling. Again, associated principle. The materials and finish, the architectural shingles and cement fiber siding do not meet the standards for the highest level of materials and finishes or BAR principles for new construction. See BAR principle. And the window locations on the side elevation seem random rather than intentional. For architectural merit, the side elevation should be more highly composed. Again, principle and contributes to the public realm. No feature is relevant. Staff conditions for approval, restudy as a 2.5 story structure, restudy front facade as 2 bays instead of 3. And the staff recommendation is deferral for restudy of height, scale, and mass, and denial for additional height for architectural merit.
Travis, Mr. Wells, do you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment to the city staff comments? Okay, all right, public comment and the applicant's presentation is now closed. So we'll move into board discussion and a vote.
I do have one question of the applicant. The building, you're proposing it to be not in alignment with the property lines. What's the pattern of the other buildings on the street? Do they align with the property lines, or are they askew like yours is?
Can we go back to the site plan?
Don't work, you want to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to making it parallel. We were trying to,
Yeah, I mean, it's just, if there's an established pattern, I would stick with that
Yeah,
established
okay.
pattern.
I think the other ones were parallel with the street, but we can figure that out.
Okay.
Does this butt up right to Cat Fiddle? Is that the reason for the height?
This one is this,
Can I look at the,
yeah, so. You come off Kennedy off the crosstown, so we're here. And the Cat Fiddle's kind of over here, so you've got one house between where we are in Cat Fiddle. It's not too far.
thank you.
Any other question?
I asked that just thinking that if it was right up against Cat Fiddle. Yeah, it would sort of, it would be more in keeping that area if it's across the street.
Well, I completely agree with staff in that the submittal doesn't pass the architectural merit test for an additional half story. It's nothing more than what we would typically see. Yeah, I am concerned about the building's overall height with in relationships to its neighbors. I think it would be much better as a 2.5 story. I mean, reduced by half a story. The few other things that I've picked up on, the windows, they look like they're uncomfortably close to the building corners. They should probably be moved inward, and they're also sort of crowding the eaves on the front and back. The porch, I have an issue with the porch in that it's so shallow, it's more or less looks like an applied decorative element instead of a usable element. So I would say it either needs to be increased in depth or do come up with some sort of design without a full porch across the front. And also the shallowness of it, I think, affects the overall proportions of the building as well. The porch columns, they should sit entirely on the porch decking itself and not overhang like they're doing now. I think the window composition on the right side needs some refinement to give a little more uniformity. Of course, as always, we ask for the thicker siding when using cementitious siding. And as I sort of mentioned before, if there's an established pattern of placement of buildings on lot, this should also conform to that established pattern. I don't know, there's an alternative to putting the parking out front. The lot is so small. So if the parking does have to go out front, extra care needs to be taken to design something, some sort of a parking pad that's going to be attractive. So some real thought needs to be put into that as well. And I definitely this needs to come back to the board for another review.
I agree with everything that you've said and what the preservation group said. I only want to add that the porch feels like it needs to be pulled in from the side so that the eaves land on the face of the building instead of the little ears kind of sticking out.
I've just got two things that caught my eye. If you make this a 1.5 stories, you may want to revisit the turned balusters because that's a pretty formal detail. And it's going to be a less formal building then. And there seems to be a lot of thickness between the first and second floor porch. I don't know if it needs to be that thick. There's certainly no span to it, right? So,
Yeah, that's fine.
I make a motion for deferral. Actually, I can go with staff, deferral for restudy of height, scale and mass. And there's a denial for the additional height for architectural merit. So it should be restudied as a 2.5-story or lower structure. Restudy, which should include board comments about the porch. And the
Porch width
parking,
and depth,
the way,
the width and the
the
depth.
width and the depth, and the parking. And the window size and placement. Have I got it?
I got the gist of it.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for deferral for restudy of height, scale, and mass, denial for additional height for architectural merit. And a board comment to restudy the porch width and depth, the parking, and the window size and placement. Do I have a second to Becky's motion?
I'll second.
Bill, take a motion to a vote. Laura?
Yay in favor.
Daryl?
Yeah, in favor.
Becky?
Yay in favor.
Bill?
Yeah, in favor.
Chair votes the majority and the motion passed unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Wells. Sorry.
Thank you.
All right, agenda item 6, 123 Meeting Street. Travis, if you'll give us an introduction and overview of the project, please.
All right, 123 meeting is in Charleston Village, Council District 8. It is a category 4, circa 1944 in the Alden Historic District. They are requesting a conceptual approval for exterior renovations to mixed-use building. We have the aerial. Looking west. Looking down the street, we have Queen. Looking north. Photo circa 1973. And we have Sanborn maps. And we're ready for the applicant.
Hi, I'm Michaela Klein with AJ Architects, representing our client Jamie Dides. Jamie and her family recently purchased the mixed-use building at 123 Meeting with the intention to use the commercial space, the basement and the first floor, which was formerly a law office, for a spa, and the residential space, second and third floors as their home. This is some images of the building as it exists today. And then here's the 1884 Sanborn map with no record of a structure on the site. Here's the 1888 Sanborn map with no record of a structure on the site. The 1902 Sanborn map, which shows a 2-story structure on the corner. And then the 1944 Sanborn map, where we see the first image of the 3-story structure that exists today. And then the 1951 Sanborn map, which shows the 3-story structure with the corner structure still intact. We believe the 2-story structure was demolished after 1955 and the 1-story addition with a basement was added. Since the 1955 Sanborn map. And this is a current context plan of the structure as it exists today. Our scope of work includes interior modifications to accommodate the change of use to a spa and some renovations to the residence. Exterior modifications to create a walkout terrace on the roof of the 1-story structure, a walled garden, modifications to the meeting street entry, modifications to the rear stair roof, addition of operable shutters, and repair of masonry, stucco, and windows. Here are the existing and proposed basement plans. There will only be interior changes to the basement level. Here are the existing and proposed first floor plans. Here you can see the extent of the walled garden and the new stair from the roof terrace. And here are the existing and proposed second floor plans. To create the rooftop terrace, we will add a stair to the garden and create a new parapet wall on the west side of the roof. The existing skylights will be removed and replaced with a single larger skylight with an exaggerated curve. The mechanical units will be relocated and screened. Here are the existing and proposed east elevations facing Meeting Street. We are proposing to add operable shutters to the windows, add a surround at the entry door, and repair and repaint the existing stucco. Repair or replace in kind the existing wood windows, repair and repaint the existing brick. Here are the existing and proposed south elevations facing Queen Street. We are proposing to add a cast concrete stair with a wrought iron rail for access from the roof terrace to the garden. The masonry wall with 3-coat stucco will define the garden area. The stepped roof over the rear stair will be removed and replaced, and a delicate canopy will cover the existing door access to the roof terrace. Here are the existing and proposed west or rear elevations. You can see the new stucco parapet wall added to the terrace, the stair, and the masonry stucco wall for the garden. We are also proposing a wrought iron gate for access to the garden. The existing steel fire stair will remain, get repaired and painted. Finally, the existing and proposed north elevations, no proposes or change are proposed here, no changes. In conclusion, our intent in this project is to repair the exterior of the structure and improve the Queen Street portion of the property to give Jamie's family some protected outdoor space.
Any questions for the applicant?
Have you guys come across any historic photos, kind of guide you in any of this?
I've looked a little, I haven't found a ton.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Do we have anyone speaking from the public? Travis, will you give us any staff comments and recommendations?
All right, staff observation 1, extending the parapet wall cleans up the Queen Street facade and lessens the clutter. 2, the removal of parking spaces will need to be approved by zoning. Staff condition for approval, restudy new stairs and add detail due to prominent location. And the staff recommendation is conceptual approval of board staff conditions and preliminary and a final review at staff.
Thank you, Travis. Ms. Klein, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the city staff comments? Public comment and the applicant's presentation is now closed. So move into board discussion and a vote.
Make me go first.
No, I don't.
Becky goes first.
So, I guess, I mean, in looking at this, the first one is, I think I reached out to ask VAR the policy on composite shutters, which are not allowable. It's just a detail. I think my main comments are on the south, the Queen Street elevation, just because Queen Street is starting to have kind of a nice pedestrian experience with, you know, the hotel now engaging the street, the restaurants engaging the street. I mean, I would honestly like us to see this project somehow. Like you're not walking up the driveway, but there's actually an engagement. Maybe there's a gate in that wall or there's some pedestrian interaction. Two things give me pause. One is the stair to the parapet. I think it does. They definitely cleaned up the form. I like that a lot. I think the stair being right there, it just needs to be a beautiful, like a nice entry element. And then I didn't actually pick up on the plan that there was the kind of load gun in the back covering the stair going down. So those columns look kind of tall and skinny. Well, it looked like in the side elevation, one of them was standing on the wall. And then the end one was not.
Maybe going on top of something.
What?
Aren't they going on top of something that was?
They're going over, I think, the stairwell.
I saw the columns were resting on.
One of them's resting on the wall.
Okay,
I think.
that's what I saw.
I had some concern about the tall skinny column at the end.
Yeah.
So those were my main comments.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I've always, this building's always struck me as being sort of very plain. So I think the addition of the door surround is a nice added feature, and the addition of the shutters. I would like to see them as a non-composite. I agree with you about the engaging the side street, Queen Street. I think it could be done as simple as maybe some sort of a gate or something. But overall, I'm pleased with the project.
I agree. My only concern is the Queen Street side, the 3-story portion having shutters on some windows and not on all. I'm sure because they would crash into each other. They maybe just restick that.
I'm not sure the stairs meet code because of it being more than 12 feet high without a landing. I just ran the numbers on it. It seems to be 13 to 14 feet. So that might have to get restudied.
Yeah, I think it needs, like Becky said too, it needs some good detailing and maybe a landing is an opportunity.
Yeah.
So a nice.
I do like the fact that they're somewhat cantilevered because I think they make a little lighter. Not so bulky, but I agree, it needs some detail work.
We have some consensus on emoji.
I'll make a motion. I make a motion for approval. Conceptual approval. Conceptual approval with restudy of the shutter material and the and look at and the shutter configuration on the south elevation. And restudy of the stair detail on Queen Street. Addition of a pedestrian entrance. And restudy of the columns of the loggia.
Go back to your fourth comment. It was after we studied the stair detail.
So add a pedestrian, add a pedestrian entrance. On Queen Street. And restudy the tall columns for the, I guess you call it a loggia. Okay.
About preliminary and final review at staff. Do you want to see this again or are you okay just going to staff?
What do you think about the stairs? Can you see that?
It's not good.
I think
Yeah, I think the final review about preliminary and final by staff.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with some board conditions. 1, to restudy the shutter material. 2, to restudy the shutter configuration, south elevation. 3, to restudy the stair detail at Queen Street. 4, to add a pedestrian entrance on Queen Street. And 5, to restudy the columns for the loggia. Do I have a second to Becky's motion? I'll second. Laurel, put the motion to a vote. Daryl?
Yeah, in favor.
Bill?
you in favor?
Becky?
Yay in favor.
Laura? Yay in favor. The chair vote to the majority. However, that motion should have also included with preliminary and final review by staff. Chair vote to the majority in the revised motion.
I'm creating these really long lists.
No, it's actually really helpful for the applicants. I think Julie used to put a lot of, I think it's really helpful, yeah. Okay, agenda item 7, 35 Gibbs Street. Travis, could you give us an introduction and overview of the project, please?
35 Gibbs Street. It is in Charlestown, Council District 8. It is unrated circa 1920 in the Old City District. They are requesting conceptual approval for a minimally visible screen porch addition on rear and 1-story addition on the east side and removal of rear boiler chimney. This is the aerial front of the home. On the Gibbs. We have Sanborn maps. And we're ready for the applicant.
Good evening, I'm Julie O'Connor. I'm the designer on this project. 35 Gibbs. It was built around in the 1920s. And sometime after 1955, this sort of two-story element was constructed on the rear and this little one-story element on the side. And here's just a few pictures showing sort of the limited visibility of the areas where we're working. So I'll go to the elevations. We're not proposing any changes to the front. On the west elevation, we're maintaining everything for the oldest part of the house. And then this area back here, which has been changed and modified and done all kinds of crazy things over time, was porches, was somewhat enclosed, now has a group deck. Clean that area up for heated and cooled space. Maintaining our corner porch for the oldest part of the house. And then adding a screen porch, which is fully in the backyard and not visible. This is the current rear elevation, so quite chaotic, a lot of things going on. So again, just cleaning that up and reworking that and making that, just better living space and adding this screen porch again, visible. And then on the side, on the east elevation, again, maintaining all the things that were original to the house in the front portion. And extending this little one-story area. There's this little shed area right here, a little boiler room there. So we're removing that, removing this boiler chimney that's in the back, not visible from the street, and adding just a few more little one-story areas tying in to our new screen porch in the back. And that's it.
Any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I probably wasn't listening closely enough.
Oh.
On the east. Sorry, Sheila. On the east elevation, the one-story compound. How old did you think that was?
It's post 1955 as well. It does not show up on Sanborn.
Gotcha. I guess they just bumped out their dining room there or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other questions? Thank you. Do we have anyone speaking?
Good evening, I'm Robert Lowry. This is not my normal place, so I apologize if I'm nervous and stutter a little bit. But I live at 102 South Battery, which is pretty much directly behind this house. In the 1800s, the city leaders of Charleston came to the medical society and asked them what they could do to help prevent disease that was running rampant, such as yellow fever and smallpox. The response they gave is don't block the wind. And as we see today, we have more issues with what I refer to as the urban canyons, such as Calhoun Street and Concord Street, which is exactly doing that. However, that doesn't have much effect on this. About 15 years ago, our neighbor was allowed to build a two-story garage 3 feet from our property line, right next to our back porch. For the last 15 years, I've got to admire that brick wall just about every day as I walk out there. This house, unfortunately, our house is just a little bit higher than the house in question. And so our back porch actually will be looking right at the roof of this house. And what we really object to is the mass effect, which is not only the 30-foot wall. Let me see if I can figure this out.
Go the other direction.
I'm sure I'll screw this up because I don't get to do this often. So, basically about 30 feet away from us is not only this wall, but this protrusion of the back porch right here, which is going to come within the legal limit to the back property line. And not only that, but although it doesn't look so major here, this additional roof is what we're going to be basically looking at. And so not only this roof on the new back screen porch, but the roof on the side here. So, you know, we're not going to be looking up at this. We're going to be looking either at or down onto this from basically nose level. So this is our major objection. And, you know, it's nice that they're not changing anything from the front. So the occasional tourist looking at it will like, oh, you know, beautiful house. But those of us who are residents on the street, and I've lived here for over 30 years, we're going to be living with this every day. So this is how it will affect us. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Bay with the Preservation Society of Charleston. The PSC appreciates the applicant reaching out to us about this project that we feel is heading in the right direction architecturally, and we're glad that alterations are limited to previously modified areas. However, we encourage setting ways to further differentiate the addition from the historic house per the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, such as using different window light patterns, siding profiles, and retaining the corner boards, particularly on the east elevation or first floor.
Is there anyone else speaking? Okay, Travis, if you'll give us city staff comments and recommendations, please.
All right, staff observation 1 is it is tucked under the existing eave. The existing corner is maintained. 2, there's some visibility from Council Street, but we'll only see the addition and not the mass of the house. 3, the new addition simplifies and cleans up the rear elevation. 4, the cable railing is atypical but not visible from the street. Staff conditions for approval, provide material specifications for staff review. And our recommendation is conceptual approval with board and staff conditions and preliminary and final review by staff.
Thank you, Travis. Julie, did you want to respond to or clarify anything in the public comment to the city staff comments?
Sure, happy to. I think that we are open to, you know, sort of looking at different siding profiles and or window pane layout. We just sort of felt like this really wasn't going to be visible, and we liked the idea of it being cohesive, but completely open to that if that's something that is important. And we are not that it matters, but we're not doing cable railings. We are going to do wood vertical pickets, but.
Oh, apologies, we thought we read a note somewhere.
It probably was in a note that I left on there after I had changed it to wood railings. So, yeah. So there you go. That's it.
Thank you. All right, public comment and the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
Can I ask a question, either of Travis or the applicant? Has this received zoning approval for the rear setback?
Yes, we have. Well, so we don't need a zoning approval for the rear setback. It's a porch, so it can be 10 feet from the rear property line. But we do have zoning approval for the special exception because that second floor of the addition is open and now we're closing it in. So we have a special exception for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So we're working within those confines that the zoning board kind of set up for us. My comments completely align with the Preservation Society in that I think the additions need to be differentiated some more. And I think there's some simple steps that could be taken. And I agree about the east elevation, preserving that corner board on the 1-story portion. That's a later addition, but it's still part of the historic evolution of the house. And I would even go so far as saying, preserve that corner, maybe step that pantry in a little bit so that that corner still reads. That's kind of my comments.
Same comments along those lines for that corner where the pantry is, and maybe lowering the screen porch roof so that it tucks under that existing little 1-story shed roof. And also at the rear, I feel like the roof on the addition, the 2-story portion, needs some restudy. Maybe a hipped roof would work better, pulling it down a little bit so that it's clearing the original roof gable, because I think that would be a little challenging to get the flashing and all that kind of stuff in there too.
That might also make the massing a little bit more similar to what's there for the neighbor.
Exactly.
So that may help with that concern.
I've got nothing to add.
Laura, did you want to make a motion?
Love how you keep us on track. Let's see, hold on. I'm sure I have all the notes in front of me. I make a motion for conceptual approval with board and staff conditions and preliminary and final review by staff. The board conditions are: one, to restudy the rear roof at the second floor addition. Two, to maintain that original corner at the east. And restudy the screen porch roof height, how that ties in together. Does that cover all of our needs? And then the staff condition already included material specs, so we'll let them take care of that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with board and staff conditions and preliminary final review by staff, with the board conditions being to restudy the rear roof of the second floor addition to maintain the original corner at the east elevation, and 3, to restudy screen porch roof. All right, do I have a second to Laura's motion?
A second.
It's Daryl.
Okay.
Put the motion to a vote. Phil?
Yay in favor.
Becky?
Yay in favor.
Laura?
In favor.
Daryl?
Yeah, in favor.
Chair votes the majority and the motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item 8, 1138 King Street. Travis, if you'll give us an introduction, overview of the project, please.
All right, 1138 King is in the North Central Neighborhood Council District 4. It is a Category 4 building circa 1955 in the Historic Corridor District. They are requesting conceptual approval to build a new garage. This is the aerial. We have a photo of the main house in former garage. Sanborns. And we're ready for the applicant.
Good evening, Michael Capel with Crosstown Builders, with the Schuler residents for this project. We've taken all the recommendations from the previous meeting and made all the changes to the plan, and we're looking forward to hopefully moving forward.
This is previously submitted.
It came before you as the demo of the garage.
Yeah.
And they also met with staff about detailing of the garage.
We have made all the changes to the plan as recommendations.
Are there any questions for the applicant? All right. Do we have anyone speaking?
Well, and with the Preservation Society of Charleston. The PSC feels that this replacement garage structure should better relate to the character of the North Central neighborhood with more symmetric proportions and high quality materials. Based on the application, the material palette is unclear. At the last meeting where the previous garage was approved for demolition, the owner indicated a willingness to salvage historic materials, and we encourage any and all salvaged wood to be reused in this new design. Based on the level of restudy needed, we ask the board to defer this application. Thank you.
Hi, Lisa Jones, Historic Charleston Foundation. I agree with everything that Preservation Society said, and we also found that the application didn't provide all of the necessary information for us to truly understand what the structure was going to look like. And so we respectfully recommend deferral of the request until we can get that information. Thank you.
Is there anyone else speaking? Okay, Travis, if you'll give us the staff comments and recommendations, please.
All right, the staff observation is similar in size and appearance to the previously demolished structure. Staff condition for approval is garage door should be as carriage style. And the staff recommendation is conceptual approval with board staff conditions and preliminary final review by staff.
Thank you, Travis. Did you all want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the staff comment or the public comment? Okay. All right, public comment and the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
I was gonna say, could I get some more information from staff in terms of what guides the design on this, since it exceeds the typical from zoning? And like, are we reviewing it for the typical height, scale, mass, architectural merit? I mean, architectural direction like we normally would for conceptual, or we have to stick to make it look like? So the previous garage doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if it matches that. Okay, so we're starting from scratch, like normal, okay. One, I think that this application is somewhat incomplete. There were no photos included in the application other than what I pulled up on, just Google. There are no existing site plans versus proposed site plans, and no elevations relating the garage to the house from a height, scale, mass kind of connection. I also think that this particular project could benefit from a streetscape because of the relation and how it faces Maple Street, is that right? Maple? And how it relates to the houses along the street. So I find it hard personally to be able to judge whether or not this is going in the right direction.
Definitely think a streetscape on this one would be very helpful.
I tend to agree. Also, there are inconsistencies between the few details that we have, the window details and what's actually going on the building. So those things need to be coordinated as well. It's just the quality of the submittal is really, really low and it's difficult to follow.
Well, it's not following the guidelines.
Right.
So that's what's making it hard.
And ditch the faux shutters.
Yeah, that was weird.
Well, the whole, like there are two different elevations and different roof pitches and everything.
Yeah, they're.
Well, it sounds like we might have some consensus on a deferral.
Deferral, yeah.
This isn't complete enough for us to review. I make a motion for deferral.
We have a motion on the floor for deferral. Do I have a second?
No. Second.
Bill, put the motion to a vote. Becky?
Yeah, in favor.
Daryl?
Yeah, in favor.
Laura?
Yay in favor.
Bill?
Yeah, in favor.
Chair votes in the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. Agenda item 9, 645 East Bay Street. Travis, if you'll give us an introduction and overview of the project, please.
645 East Bay Street is in the East Side Neighborhood Council District 4, was not rated. This is new construction in the old city district. They are requesting conceptual approval for a new 4-story mixed-use building with carriage house in the rear. This is an aerial of the existing site. Is looking west towards the site. North on East Bay, south on East Bay. And you're ready for the applicant.
Hi, my name is Sean Carlin, Carlin Architecture Studio. I'm the designer of the project. So this is on East Bay, and as you're going south down East Bay, this is the last structure before you approach the site. The bottom photo is our site, and you can see that building kind of adjacent. There's parking and vehicular circulation to the right side. So the right side of this building is going to be fairly prominent when driving down East Bay in the public right of way. This is a law office on the corner, and it flanks the opposite side of the site as it exists. One thing to note is you can see from the top photo, the elevation of the grade of that site is significantly raised from street level and sidewalk level. And that's very similar to the site conditions that exist at 645. the top photo is further down East Bay after you've crossed Amherst, and then the bottom is Amherst, kind of to the left of that lawyer's office on the corner of East Bay and Amherst. This is kind of around the context as you look from the site in all different directions. These are some of the precedents that we used: the Hyatt House on King Street, Delta Pharmacy, East Bay and Calhoun, 741 Meeting Street. So this is the site plan as it currently exists. We did actually have to go back and put two additional parking spaces for the business. That was based on TRC re-clarifying that with our civil engineers. So there is now the two parking spaces in the carriage house for the residents, and then the two parking spaces in that rear court for the business occupancy. So here is your view if you were across the street, standing kind of against the chain link fence of the terminal, looking to the site. The top is the previously proposed, the bottom is now the newly proposed building. The biggest things that we restudied were kind of creating a more unified front facade, more cohesive with the design direction. It felt top heavy with the split 2-story mass and 2-story mass. So what we've done is now created a grounded 3-story brick base. And then that 4th story is now even further set back. The floor area, if you take out the elevator stair shaft, has been reduced by 30%. It's 5 feet from the north side, 2'6" from the south, or from the east side, and then 2'2" from the south side. It's all been stepped in further than it previously was, in order to kind of mitigate it. And in that bottom image, you can kind of see from East Bay, it's not very prominent. You might catch the top corner of it. The 3-story mass now fronting the street actually mimics 655 East Bay on the opposite side of the development to the north. I think it's part of that development, but it's a single story, or a standalone 3-story Charleston single. One of the other things that was restudied was kind of the entry and how the building addresses the sidewalk level. So what that area will now be, it's an entry vestibule and it's the ADA access to the site. There will be a chairlift in that area because we cannot, we don't have any pedestrian circulation any further into the site. So that is kind of the only area we're able to do that. But it does help us create a nice vestibule and address the sidewalk for a building that is actually 6'8" above sidewalk level at the ground floor level. The balconies on the front were also restudied and become more cohesive in the design. They're very similar in intent to the Hyatt House on King Street, a little bit more of a modern take. Here again is a better head-on view for you to see. The south facade, again, from that side now, this is if you're standing more or less where that law office is on the street there. That 4th story kind of disappears. One of the things that was brought up was the vertical and flat nature of those brick walls. They are too close to the site to put any glazing in. We met with Preservation Society, and one of the things we kind of talked about was creating maybe some differentiation in brick panels. So the proposal, right now is a sawtooth brick. So it'll create a little bit more texture and depth and a little bit of play of light and shadow along those very flat facades otherwise. And also an intermediate cornice line was added between the 1st and 2nd floor to also help kind of break that up and ground that 1st floor a little bit more. This is the prominent facade as you come down East Bay Street coming from the north. Again, it's directly on the property line, or very, very close, so there is no ability to put glazing on those walls. We put that intermediate cornice line and the sawtooth brick panels. That rearmost mass is the circulation. So the height of that was because of the elevator overrun in order to get the elevator to the 4th floor. This aerial shows how much the upper stepped in story has been reduced. in scale and size, both floor plate and kind of overall height and mass. This is the reworked rear. Again, that stepped in mass kind of mitigates the backside, helps to kind of combine with the front side in the balconies and configuration. And the carriage house was brought down in scale to be more appropriate and be less impactful on the 72 Drake Street property behind it. Building section was added for your guys' clarity to show what the floor to floors were, and that there is nothing kind of egregious in terms of floor to floors. They're in line with what you would typically see. And I think that addresses everything.
Any questions for the applicant?
For the two balconies on the front, are they cantilevered concrete? Is that what that is?
Currently, it probably would be cantilevered, like steel channels finished out. The face would be a steel channel. So we'd probably bar steel cantilevered out tubes, and then we'll do either tongue groove underside or something to kind of give it a nice, clean, refined underside.
The site elevation, so I don't see a survey. It looked like in visiting the site that the grade was only about like 4.5 or 5 feet higher than the street. Is this an existing 6'4" above grade, or I mean, is this the existing grade that's 6'4" in the back?
The garage at the back is at the existing grade at the rear of the site.
And TRC is, you guys did an auto turn to get those two spaces out of the
Yes, we've
site?
been through
Okay.
2 iterations so far and have continued to kind of have individual meetings. And through all of those so far, my inkling is that most of the things we're going to be going to paperwork with those.
Yeah.
Different.
At 31 feet, that's kind of tough.
Yeah.
To make that turn and get in. Okay, yeah, sorry. That's all.
Have you thought about or had any discussions with the building department? And I'm not sure if this is an option or not, as a way to kind of rectify the two side elevations, the blankness, maybe using, I don't know if this is an option, fire rated windows.
It is not.
Okay.
Anything closer than, I think it's 5 feet or 3 feet from to the property line, it doesn't matter whether it's protected glazing, sprinkler building, non-sprinkler building, there is no allowable glazing in that wall.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Do we have anyone speaking?
Laurel Fay with the Preservation Society of Charleston. The PSC appreciated the applicant meeting with us and incorporating our feedback into this revised, much improved design. While it's unfortunate that given the setbacks, there's so much blank wall space incorporated as part of the design, we appreciate the efforts made to add visual interest and detail. We encourage the same level of attention to detail on the large, unadorned stair and elevator tower, and for the applicant to pursue any opportunity to add fenestration to this part of the building. Finally, we would like to see a restudy of the proportions of the fenestration at the rear that make the 3rd floor height feel exaggerated. Thank you.
Anyone else speaking? All right, Travis, if you give the city staff comments and recommendations, please.
All right, staff observation. 1, street presence is taller than previously proposed and the overall building height is taller. 2, banding and detailing added to the south elevation. Size of panels with dogtooth detailing give a larger scale to the building. Instead of multi-story panels that align register with stories. 3 additional balconies have been added to the east bay facade. Staff conditions for approval. Staff suggest increasing the height of the cornice, matching the width of the banding, and adding detailing to cornice similar to banding. 2, restudy size and scale of relief panels on south and north elevation. And we recognize the columns has column size has increased, but should still have been more substantial proportions. Staff recommendation is conceptual approval with board and staff conditions to return to board for preliminary.
Thank you. Travis, Mr. Carlin, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment or the city staff comments?
Yeah, I guess the one thing I did forget to say is we're in a 5-story height district. We're only asking for 4 stories in terms of that. And that the column that's proposed was, I think it was 10 inches in diameter, if I remember off the top of my head. I don't know how much more substantial a steel column would need to be anchored at that corner.
How tall is it?
9 or 10 feet. It's not, again, we brought the scale of that whole entry sequence down significantly to make it more pedestrian friendly and have the proper scale of the street.
Thank you. Public comment and the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
I think from the previous submittal, it's made some good strides here. One of the biggest things was softening of the penthouse element by changing it from the 2-story mass down to 1 story. And then absorbing the rest of it into a 3rd full story. I think that's helped a lot. The probably as far as proportions go, the thing that I think needs a little bit more work is the 1st floor, I believe. To me, looks out of proportion with the upper floors. To me, it looks like those windows want to go up a little higher, and the entry ceiling needs to go up a little bit. There's a good bit of wide space up above those windows that might allow those just the windows to have a taller head height. To me, the biggest issues continue to be the 2 side elevations. They're almost, especially the north one, it's almost as important as the front elevation. But I realize you can't get any windows in there. So the idea of the panels, the sawtooth panels, I think if that idea was carried, kind of massaged it a little bit, it could be better by maybe doing, as Travis said, sort of base their sizes upon the individual floors instead of having big, large panels. Maybe you break them up into smaller panels per floor. The only other thing is kind of what Preservation Society touched on, is the elevator stair tower in the back. It looks kind of exaggerated and stretch in appearance. But it's not greatly visible, I don't think. I'm not quite sure what you would do about that. And I'm satisfied with the rear garage.
I have one question about the scale of the front. So at 45 feet, it's really, and the neighbors are 35 feet. I mean, it's essentially, well, that's the problem with the proportion of this, because floor to floor is grade, the first floor is 20 feet. And that's what's, it's called a 3-story, but it's actually a 4-story. I think that's what's affecting the proportions there. So I think that's, I do worry a little bit about the scale of that. But I agree with your comments. The stair tower shouldn't, I mean, I would prefer that was just integrated into that, simplified into that upper level piece. That doesn't need to be any higher than 10 feet. I mean, I think the elevator, depending on the elevator type. But I do struggle with something big.
Well, just backing up, so just conceptual approval. It is, what are the thoughts on? Is it there for conceptual height scale mass? And then the board can see it back at preliminary.
I would be on board with that.
I wasn't here in December, but from what I'm looking at, it looks greatly improved.
I agree too. I wasn't here, but
yeah,
there's a great improvement. And also thank you very much for putting the previous proposal right next to the new proposal. So it's
whole afternoon.
I know.
The 3D views are also very helpful.
Yes.
And Darren, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was in agreement with Laurel from the Preservation Society about the finister or the on the brick on the back of the building, because it still is going to be somewhat visible. I drive by it every day, that lot, and you'll see it straight down there. So if the architect could study that a little bit.
The stair tower piece.
Yeah, I think it's a great improvement over the last time you presented.
Do we have enough consensus on a motion?
I'm going to make a motion to approval of conceptual approval with comments from the staff and Bill's comment, or see also additional study the brick on the side, the brick detailing on the side elevations. And Bill suggested studying
The elevator towers.
the
Elevator,
yeah,
she comes out.
and studying the window height, header heights at the front elevation to see if we can improve that a little bit. What else? Was that it? Or-
I think that's the gist of it.
Yeah,
And then we want to see it back at preliminary.
yeah.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with the staff conditions and board conditions to restudy the brick on the side elevation, also restudy the elevator tower, the height of the elevator tower, and restudy the window heights of the front elevation. Do I have a second to Daryl's motion?
I'll second.
Bill? Oh, and it is to the return to the, well, I don't need to say that because we just don't say anything. Okay, put the motion to a vote. Laura?
Yay in favor.
Becky?
Yeah, in favor.
Daryl?
Yeah, Bill.
Yeah, in favor.
Chair votes the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Farland.
Architect, you did a renovation on the campus. That was absolutely gorgeous. I pass it every morning when I'm taking.
We're gonna take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at whatever's 10 minutes from now, 6:32.
Put it on your website.
Yeah, I have to. I have to actually work on our website. My time.
Now, I.
Like how.
How much you guys?
What? The porch exception.
Yeah.
I know. And we don't like that sort of law. The neighbors don't know that.
Yeah.
And they miss the zoning, which is actually the most important. I know. Where the stakes.
Exactly.
Go down.
Yeah. I'm sure. So, yeah. Well, I think we know, that's something that. Yeah. But, yeah.
Yes, it's going to be. That's really.
But it's just like, when I get to work one thing, I was saying, I just work on that like that.
Did you run Gene Hackman out there? Yeah. He lived there until
Now everyone does.
Yeah. This is just, I saw where they turn around.
There weren't even. They we're not going in May, we went in May. But, yeah, we're very excited, because, yeah.
Not reasonable.
Small, pretty small.
Yeah, yeah. Everything I've seen, I feel elaborate.
Yeah, it's very interesting. How money shows. We have to go to well, yes.
Everyone's running around bunch of.
The honors of.
Oh, yeah, I want to heard of that. No, it's Cassidy. It's Cassidy. Totally underrated. That place is gorgeous. That quality of housing there.
Excellent.
Builds itself.
Fingers crossed. And I'll come through.
Yes.
And honestly, it's that's the city's first.
It is. Where we are going.
Yeah. It's actually just.
Wow.
Lots of
juice. There are all those places.
All the houses are kind of here. It's not funny. They kept it nice.
Sure that they.
Another one, another. Yeah.
Back in Colorado, where Ben was. You were in the place. I think you're good, yeah. It has been outside.
Not that I know. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, how long have you been there?
I haven't seen a rig that's out yet.
Yeah.
I managed to get him up there.
It's good. I would just hike in the, until you drag up, hike through the snow.
He was just posting.
Yeah.
I do.
And they were, they were.
Yeah, she had like a camelback and was fully prepared and was like walking on top of the glacier and I was like saying hip deep right into it.
Put him like birds.
Yeah. We got to the top and it was 40 degrees.
He was furious.
Well, the one up in San Jose, I had one thing I had like is Western church now. They're so well ranked because they know how to play. It's the third one and then that's not better than. It just makes you feel like heavier.
So I might have to get to one of those. My sister gave me.
Developing.
I think it did.
Next, you got
For Trish's
looking
or
at
Trish's birthday.
Or you want to take some turns.
I'll send you a picture.
So,
He was-
Yeah, there is.
He needed it.
Like the knee-high socks, like the compression socks, yeah, you need that. Actually, they're really helpful. Right, they are.
Yeah. This year. He's
No.
slowly getting.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. The cowboy boots are gonna be stretched.
I like it. I liked it. Not that I have anything against the new.
Yeah.
This location is stunning and I'm
That's
sure.
why there.
But I don't.
Especially
Especially since we sold our house. Well.
Have you been to
Central rentalist house.
I've been, yeah. A long time ago, right?
Yeah. No, it's a fun fundamental thing.
And it's really big.
Yeah, and. Yeah, but like, I mean.
We didn't make those.
I can tell.
Are you all good? I smell it. It's up there.
More than 4 people there.
That's probably not easy.
It is.
The big thing is that
Very strong.
Yeah.
Spend your day outside, but your nights are inside. And then it feels like darker. Looking on the road, like. We need to do some stuff.
Alright, ready? Okay, agenda item 10, 423 King Street. Travis, you'll give us an introduction overview of the project, please.
All right, 423 King Street, Redwood Borough, it is in Council District 4, unrated, circa 1978 in the Old and Historic District. They are requesting conceptual approval for a new storefront. Here is the aerial street view. Looking north on King Street and looking south on King Street. And we're ready for the applicant.
Hi, Ruben Solo with Glen Keys Architects. It's a building on 423 King Street. This was the original Engel Brothers furniture store. And then when they closed, it was reconfigured to house the RTC. So they were in the building up until a couple of years ago, and when they moved their offices over to the new visitor center. The current owners have bought the building and would like to return it to retail. It is just a little bit over 11,000 square feet, and the idea that you could sort of get one tenant in there at that part of King Street is a stretch perhaps. So what they would like to do is reconstruct the storefronts into 3 different storefronts. I will tell you that the only door photographs, the only door into the building is actually that door. And then there is one other door that goes into the parking lot at the back. And so from a code perspective and egress perspective, we would like to get more doors into the storefront. But the idea is that they could turn it into 3 different storefronts and lease out to 1 or up to 3. The footprint and the location of the storefront would stay the same. We do have about a 4-inch difference between the sidewalk and the finished floor of the building. So we'd like to recess all the entry doors so that we can get a ramp in there and make that accessible. But we would maintain the existing knee wall for the most part, except for we cut through with the new doors. The storefront itself would be traditional wood, stylized, quite. We keep the detailing quite simple because the building itself is not very elaborate and quite simple. We would also like to expand the stucco above the existing line
which is across here, so that we can just get a little more space for signage, awnings and so forth. And so, thank you.
Any questions for the applicant?
I got one. Is this
It's stucco, that would be stucco.
It's stucco, but is it proud of this right here?
If you look, the stucco is directly onto the brick. And so we would just extend that same stucco. So it would sit about maybe 3/4 of an inch proud of the brick.
Any other questions?
The striped pieces of sea, are those the awnings?
I'm sorry.
The striped elements, are those the awnings? The show. Yeah,
There.
yeah. Is that an awning or?
The awning?
Yeah,
Just
what am I looking at, that stripe, the 3 striped areas?
I'm sorry.
We don't know what these are. Are these awnings that are coming off?
Yeah, awnings just coming off.
Okay.
I mean, something to just get a little color on the face of the building.
Thank you. Do we have anyone speaking?
Laurel May with the Preservation Society of Charleston. The PSC appreciates the chance to discuss this proposal with the applicant and are glad to see use brought back into this building. While we are not opposed to creating 3 storefronts, we would like to see the characteristic shallow pointed arches retained rather than squared off so that this building's mid-century modern architectural intent is preserved. We also request additional details about the proposed material palette as part of subsequent submittals. Thank you.
Is there anyone else speaking? Okay, Travis, if you'll give us city staff comments and recommendations, please.
All right, staff observation 1. The proposed is an upgrade to the existing storefront. The proposed awnings are tasteful and follow BAR policy. They will, however, require an encroachment permit. Signage will be reviewed separately, and illuminated signage will require board review. Drawing notes, stucco detailing and entry typical, but details for this are not provided. Staff conditions for approval provide information on materiality and detailing. And our staff recommendation is conceptual approval with staff and board conditions and final review by staff.
Thank you, Travis. Did the applicant want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment or the city staff comments?
I'm not excited about the angle.
They're not working.
But we're fine with it. It's just, it forces some things in the elevation that just don't give us as much freedom with the storefront itself, but I have no issue with it.
Okay, public comment. The applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
I agree 100% with Laurel, the Preservation Society. The arched openings, they are the one piece of character that this building's got that links it to being a mid-century modern building. And I feel pretty strongly they need to stay. The bump ups that are happening above, I'm not sure that there's going to be enough reveal to really make those work. I'm wondering if there's another way if the goal is to sort of fill that empty space up there, if there's some other way of doing that. I'm definitely opposed to the awnings and that they are purely decorative. They're not going to provide any shade to a storefront whatsoever first. So far up on the building there. So those definitely need to come down. If awnings, if they want to use awnings, then put awnings down low above the storefronts where they will actually serve a purpose. That's my comments.
I agree with Bill and Laurel. I have nothing to add.
Bill, did you want to make a motion?
Yes, my motion will be deferral, addressing the board comments of eliminate the awnings, retain the arched storefronts, and restudy the treatment of the area above the arched area. Of the blank space up there. That's what they're trying to do.
We have a motion on the floor for deferral with the following board comments. 1, to eliminate the awnings. 2, to maintain the arched openings. And then 3, to restudy the treatment of the area above the arched openings. All right, do I have a second to Bill's motion?
I'll second. Becky?
All right, put the motion to a vote. Daryl?
Yeah, in favor.
Bill?
Yeah, in favor?
Becky?
Yeah, in favor.
Chair votes to the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, agenda item 11, 197 Rutledge Avenue. Travis, if you'll give us an introduction and overview of the project, please.
All right, 197 Rutledge Avenue is in the Cannonboro, Elliottboro Neighborhood Council District 6. It is a Category 4 Circa 1850 code in the Old City District, and they are requesting conceptual approval to restore piazza screen to the house, bring piazza stairs to grade, add a knee wall and fence to the street frontage, and a wall to the rear north side of the property. This is an aerial looking at the front of the home. Looking on Rutledge. A 1986 photo of the property. Sanborn maps. And we're ready for the applicant.
Hello, my name is Alexander Brand. I'm the owner. I've been working with Ruben as the architect. So we've been looking through historical records and we haven't been able to find any pictures of the house, given its location. It's just a little bit too north of Calhoun for pictures from that era. So we are looking to address the fact that there are no boundaries, visible or tangible boundaries to the property along the rear of the house on the north side, which is currently the abutting property is a big parking lot. And it's graded about, I believe, a foot or two above the back of the property. So you have cars that are almost at eye level when you are in the back of the property. And then in the front, that is just a grass space. And unfortunately, neighborhood dogs like relieving themselves there. So any sort of barrier would be welcome from our perspective. So this is just a front shot of the proposed piazza screen that would be added to the front of the house. This is the current elevation, proposed elevation, and then proposed with knee wall and fence. Because there are no photos, we were trying to pull design elements from principally the house itself, and then when there were none, from the neighborhood at large. And so the piazza door on the second floor of the house looks like it was originally the front door on the ground floor. So insofar as the door is concerned, we thought that that would be a good pull, so we put that on the front. The brackets along the eave of the house are serving as inspirations for the bracket for the piazza screen hood. And then the stairs have, for some reason, they're very steep. So we would like to bring those to grade. So that top portion is a mock-up of the wall facing south. That's what we would see. That's the garden wall, and then the front is a closer mock-up of the knee wall with fence. And then there's the plat.
Any questions for the applicant? Thank you. Do we have anyone speaking? All right, Travis, you'll give us city staff comments and recommendations, please.
All right. Staff observations, there is no evidence of a previous piazza screen. The proposed knee wall is appropriate for the context. Matching the corbel for the door hood while architecturally appropriate, if recreating a historic screen creates a false sense of history and does not clearly delineate a new screen. Staff appreciate the inclusion of detailed drawings in the presentation. The walls, fencing will need a permit separately, to be permitted separately. Staff conditions for approval, restudy of the lanterns, the proposed lanterns are inappropriate, and restudy of the door hood detailing. Staff recommendation is conceptual approval with board and staff conditions and final review by staff.
Thank you, Travis. Mr. Horan, did I say
Yeah.
that right? Did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the staff comments?
I guess I would seek guidance for the not creating a false sense of history insofar as the bracket is concerned. What stylistic suggestions would you make, which direction to go in for that?
I think we can talk about that during the board discussion.
Okay. And then the lantern bit, that was one of the things included on the last slide. And those were just proposed to be put on poles, either at the foot or on the lower of the two piers that would be on the side of the piazza steps. And we're happy to revisit the styling of that specific lantern.
Okay, thank you. All right, public comment in the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
I think the house probably did have a piazza screen. My logic behind that is there's an existing pilaster on the second floor, but there's not one on the first floor. So yeah, directly below it. So that tells me that either someone, because there would have been just a pilaster on the second. So either someone removed the pilaster on the first floor, or someone removed a piazza screen wall. I think there probably was one screen wall existing. So I have no issue at all with a screen wall going back. And it would be sort of unusual for it not to have one. I agree on the style of the lanterns. They're kind of over ornate for a house like this. But I think I don't like the idea of a pair of lanterns on columns or anything out there either. So that needs to be kind of flushed out probably with staff. As far as your green hood, my suggestion would be going with a copper on something that small. You're going to be able to get the crimping much neater on with using copper than to try to use the steel that we're kind of forced to use today. So it's just a small amount of copper. You'll get a much cleaner and nicer look on that. The fence knee wall, I think the knee wall for the front fence, I think it's just up a little too high proportionally. So maybe extend the iron down a little bit and then, the knee wall down a little bit. But and I really don't have a problem with borrowing, the detail of the eave brackets and using that as a corbel as well. It doesn't really bother me. It's not that big of a detail, but I'm overall happy with it.
Any other comments?
I appreciate your comment about the pilaster because that was my concern, was there was no evidence shown that in the application as to the, showing a history of the piazza screen. So I appreciate.
Right,
that-
usually
that
there's evidence
observation.
underneath, or there's evidence somewhere to substantiate the request. I struggle with it a little bit because the application isn't complete. There's no side elevation. I don't know if a streetscape's really required, but just to know where it's positioned and how that side elevation looks is pretty important.
The only note I had was reduce the stucco knee wall by 1 block course, which is covered by bill. So I think we're good. Or I'm good.
If you look at their precedent on 2 at the bottom of 201 looks proportionally better. The neighbor.
Oh, yeah.
Which page?
201, that bottom right picture.
Yeah.
Well, is it enough for conceptual approval and then we can work with staff?
I think so.
I'll make a motion for conceptual approval, taking into board comments and preliminary and final review by staff.
All right, we have the motion on the floor for conceptual approval with board comments and preliminary and final review by staff. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Daryl. Put the motion to a vote. Becky?
Yay in favor.
Laura?
Yay in favor.
Bill?
Yeah, in favor.
Daryl?
Yeah, in favor.
Chair votes the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, agenda item 1284 King Street. Travis, if you'll give us an introduction, overview of the project, please.
84 King Street is in Charlestown neighborhood, Council District 8. It is a category 3 building circa 1888 in the old and historic district. They are requesting conceptual approval for second floor rear addition. Aerial. Street view. King Street. Report photo from 1973. Sanborn maps. And we're ready for the applicant.
Hey, good evening. Eddie Faber representing the Faber Architects, and Michael Fogle from my office is here as well. And we have been working with Jay and Louisa Winthrop with the renovation of 84 King Street. Interesting property as Travis had referenced. It was renovated in the 80s, albeit poorly so. So I think much of what we're trying to do is bring back a little bit more of the original character to it. It is a horizontal property regime, so it's a very long set of a very long property with several units. 84 is the front one, as you see there. There's a second little building kitchen house and then 2 units to the very rear. And looking at the plan, again, historically, you can see too, it had wood sill, a simpler door entry, things of that nature. And in the 80s, I think a lot of that was unfortunately lost. It got a very heavy coating of stucco, framed entry door on the side, large addition at the back that had a kind of big party deck on top of it, all of which we're trying to remedy. And in doing so, taking cues from the general vicinity with entry doors that would be more appropriate, and the way we would fenestrate the little addition on the back or treat the wall systems on the back as no windows are allowed onto the south side, north side of the property. And I'll come back to that normally. And then the other thing which is interesting, and I know it doesn't play other than to inform you, is the way whatever was done in that 80s renovation, as you can notice in that top left photo, the stair was bastardized and closets were protruded into the staircase. So literally, if you're walking up the left side of the step, you got to move to the center to get up. So all of that would be restored, but it helps us justify what we're doing with the entry as well. And the plan wise as well, I mean, you can see what happened on the first floor. It's minimal, nothing exterior changes other than the restoration of a more appropriate door to the entry hall. Second level, as you can see, there really isn't a master bedroom in this property. It was kind of a Jack and Jill bathroom or shared bathroom. So the idea was that if an addition was to the rear section on the non-original portion of the house and minimally visible, that would be the best approach. Also minimizing that massive deck and equipment that sits on there now would go on the roof of this element as we proceed. Through that quickly. So elevation wise, literally from the street, there's very little change. Side elevations are minimal, but our proposed would be on the lower section of this. with just a much more traditional door, a little bit of a recess, allows us to reorganize the stair on the entry. And the addition, which is off to the rear over the non-original portion, removes the kind of faux arch windows and things of that nature. Other interesting thing about that is you can see where the floor line is, or the dotted line, or the ceiling line of the first floor. The level that we have to build up to accommodate that entry is only, the addition is only 7.5 feet, because the parapet wall was so high around that big deck. Rear side, again, not visible from public right of way, but improvements to that as well. And the north elevation. We had the opportunity to speak with neighbors immediately adjacent, and no objection. To the rear, no objection. Left notices in everybody else's mailbox the same. We spoke to Preservation Society and Historic Charleston Foundation. And as the only comment I had from I think Historic Charleston Foundation was consideration of the material. We've noted on there a metal panel as an option to a wood panel, but if I could go back to the photo, excuse me. The fact that we can't put any fenestration on the north side, I think just to have a wall of siding kind of looks like the rear of a barn. And although it doesn't necessarily reflect as well on a hard elevation, if you look at these very successfully and significant properties on Chalmers Street and LeGree Street, some additions to the rear where it's just a wood panel with a bit of reveal around it, which helps modulate that. That said, if the cladding material is a question, we're certainly willing to work with staff and do something different, but I've had no objections to the addition. It's all been vetted by zoning as well. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, this is just sort of a curiosity. That strange little vertical slice on the side elevation.
Electrical meter.
Oh, it is
recessed
okay.
into the wall.
Ah, okay. I'm just curious.
Yeah, whatever they did in the 80s kind of took it over things that shouldn't get stepped over and shifted things that shouldn't have been shifted, but yeah.
I was just curious.
Sure.
But they had a party deck.
It's big.
Any more questions?
One other question, the parapet wall.
Yes, sir.
So your new addition is going on the inside of that parapet.
Yes, sir. I'm
How-
apologizing for not
How far in?
mentioning that prior, because Michael told me 15 times, don't forget to mention that it's inside. And it does.
How far in?
On the side that if you were to say would be more visible, I think it's about a foot.
Okay,
Because we're sitting inside that. On the less visible side down the driveway,
Okay.
just sitting inside the existing wall system, which is 6 or 8 inches.
gotcha.
So it recesses so that we maintain that corner as it turns and you see the mass of the original historic structure.
One other question.
Yes, sir.
On that addition facing backwards.
Yes, sir.
Your windows, without a view, not showing the parapet wall, how far down do those windows go? Or are they just hitting about the same height as the top of the wall?
On the side elevation or the
On the
rear?
rear, yeah.
The rear, we go, I think that goes all the way down.
Okay,
Glass either side. It doesn't have to, but it's not visible.
right.
And the door was the same.
Yeah.
But again, completely flexible,
Okay.
so there's, preference to that.
No.
So, it was something that went there with the sill below it, so.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Do we have anyone speaking?
Lisa Jones, Historic Charleston Foundation. You took my comment.
That's
You
all
did it
right.
already.
We know we chatted with it.
And so we reviewed the application. We appreciate that the request is on the non-historic edition and that it will be differentiated from the historic structure. We just want to suggest changing the siding material from large panels with visible seams to a different type of siding that reads more like shiplap. That's it. Thank you for your consideration.
Anyone else speaking? All right, Travis, please staff comments and recommendations, please.
All right, staff observation, the material for the addition is unknown, as the note says metal or wood. We cannot determine the architectural direction of the addition. The proposed windows are awkwardly placed and pushed to the corners. The proposed alteration to the door reduces the awkward depth of the existing entry, and the proposed door surround is more appropriate. Staff conditions for approval provide information on proposed addition siding. Proposal should be differentiated and complementary to the existing structure. Restudy placement of the proposed second floor windows. And staff recommendation is conceptual approval with conditions. Return to board for preliminary review.
Thank you, Travis. Eddie, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment, the staff comment?
Yes, I could just briefly, and happy to, like I mentioned earlier, I'm sorry, yeah, okay. Restudy if board feels it necessary, the cladding material. As I said, I know it's tough to see in the drawn elevation, but in the photographs, we felt something like what was done in those middle row of buildings, particularly the white one that would be the same color as material, offers more differentiation on the side elevation than just runs aside. So again, open to it if that's an issue, and if I could just quickly address staff comments. And so that would be, it could be a wood or a composite. We would like the composite version on the panel that we've got, that it wouldn't be a metal, but a composite panel rather than a wood panel. But we could do either, open to that, just clarifying that. Appreciate the comment with the alteration of the door. We think that's good. And we do think it's differentiated from the historic house, and it's so far removed, and have vetted neighbors and preservation organizations, and nobody had any concern about it, so we respectfully like to proceed with that. Windows as well, just from a plan standpoint. It's very difficult just by virtue of the nature of that room, and the others there, to do something where you had a nice bed wall. So again, certainly happy to, but would really like to be able to take y'all's comments and deal with staff on that if there's anything significant. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, public comment on the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
I like the panelized idea. I think that's all gonna be in the details. Yeah, getting nice, crisp, clean, joints. And of course, I think the rest of the improvements were nice as well.
I agree.
Me too. Nothing to add.
Do we have a motion, or does Becky have comments?
I'll make a motion.
All right.
Are you all good with this going to stop?
Okay, sounds like it.
All right, I make a motion for conceptual approval as
No conditions.
submitted.
Yeah, okay.
Because it'll come down to the details. So with final or preliminary and final review for materials and details with staff.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval as submitted with preliminary and final review by staff. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Bill. With the motion to a vote, Daryl,
Yay in favor.
In favor.
Laura,
Yay in favor.
Bill.
Yeah, in favor.
Chair votes the majority and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, agenda item 13, 10 Limehouse Street. Travis, go give us an introduction, overview of the project, please.
All right, 10 Limehouse Street is in Charlestown, Council District 8. It is a Category 2 building circa 1858 in the older historic district. And it is requesting conceptual approval for roof replacement from slate to standing seam copper. Aerial photos of the street and more maps. Short photo. We're ready for the app.
In favor, the favor architect and Michael Fogel from my office, representing Megan Jordan Phillips, the owners of 10 Limehouse. Trina Malka here as well, just to speak a little bit after I do. And there may be one or two that have seen this both times prior. I think some have only seen it one time and some have seen it, okay. So we're third time back, but it's been deferral and we have no objection to having to revisit some of these items and be able to mention with the information that you requested. First and foremost, as I reiterate, I know some of these have already heard this story, but the house was in a foreign condition is a kind way to put it when Megan Jordan got it. Very respectfully, the lady who owned it, who I knew had it since 1972. And I loved it. She loved her house. She just couldn't afford to do anything with it. I mean, literally. And it needed somebody with the wherewithal and the caliber to do it. And it found that in the Phillipses. And it wasn't piecemeal, it was wholesale. There wasn't any left undone. Some of the things I'm just reiterating or showing you here, and so let me just bring this up a bit so you can see it as well. When they started the project, and this is the way the house had been for many years, and it wasn't long after 1972. I mean, as best we can tell, it may have been a little before or after Hugo. The house lost whatever was left of its slate. It literally had tar paper for 30-40 years. And Shirley Platts, who again I knew well, had those little Tupperware things that she'd slide under dorms and literally empty after every rain, carrying down the steps or pouring out the window and all of that stuff. So it's had a roofing issue for quite some time. I'll come back to these, but photos of the slate that got put on it when we did the renovation in 2018, and how it's been failing. But it started not shortly after it was installed. It was a thinner slate to accommodate the structure. It had been, we used a match of some that were on site to try to do that, which is how that proceeded. When the structure was open, some of the board members asked at this last time just to see how the framing was, and the spaces are completely finished presently. But it was made at that time a decision to go back to try to match what was the original slate, although it hadn't had slate on there for 30+ years. We did have in prior applications, and I assume y'all have those as well, but I put them here, letter from not only the contractor, but the engineer, the roofer, and then just addressing prior board comments. But do think it's important just to mention some of those if y'all don't mind me going through them. But the engineer did take the calculations based on the type of slate that would be a much heavier slate, that'd be a little bit more stable, but still in fairness to the Phillipses, the roofer could not guarantee that it would not fail. He said the thicker you go, the better off you are. But he too has said that he cannot guarantee that it would not fail. In our prior meetings, I think November 14th meeting, there was the idea of like, because we're trying to change this to a standing seam copper roof, as the slate was not original. Some of the board comments up there, or staff comments were, I think, intended to say that ages ago it had been slate, but it hadn't been on the house for 30 or 40 years at least. It's not original to the house, the slate that's on there. And there was some board comments that house had slate on it its whole life, but that's not accurate either. And again, not trying to tit for tat, but just for the record and clarity for anybody that's watching or looking, that the reason we feel like this case is an anomaly and does not set a precedent is for that very reason. It did not have this for such a long time. And to do something substantial that may be more stable, but still not guaranteed, cannot be accommodated by the existing structure. The other thing, which is not anything that anyone wants to take lightly, but what falls is literally a life safety. And I don't know if that technically falls to the board, but shortly after slate pieces were falling, and that's happened in the years since. And Megan Jordan finally, they put gutter guards, they put everything, try to keep what's up there, because they put a substantial amount of money into it, that it's not working. We were over there not too long ago when there were pieces impaled on the ground and kids play out there. The neighbor next door literally leaves them a little broken slate gift at their doorstep. Every time, whether it's a storm, whether it's this or that, just leaves it at the front door and has been kind enough. And he submitted letters as well, which is in that sheet and board comments. So In addition to factors that may be outside your purview, I do think they play a role into why this is valid. And we also studied several other historic buildings and significant ones in town that are on this sheet. 1 East Battery, 9 East Battery, 69 Meeting Street, all of which at some point in their earlier lives had slate that was removed and replaced with a standing seam metal or copper. That's not uncommon on those that we're showing there as well. At 37 King, a different roof material, 41 tread, 54 tread, 83 East Bay, 87 East Bay, Actors Wharf, 89, you can read all that. And I did think it was interesting, I know it's but even Drayton Hall had a slate roof early on. The former Charleston Library at the corner of Broad Street had it at some point. Now, unlike those situations, which I think is an extra reason to really seriously consider this, is those slate roofs were original and removed wholesale to replace. That hadn't been the case here. It never had hadn't had a slate roof of any historical value in 50+ years. The stuff that's on there is something that they added in 2018 in good faith to try to accommodate and restore the property as they did to the level that it is presently. But it has become such a burden to them. And the reference that we're trying to propose is that, needless to say, in changing it to the standing seam copper material, which is not an insignificant expense as well. I know not part of y'all's purview, but is certainly valid, and particularly in this case, and do not feel that it's precedent setting. Some of those, again, I was reading those through to you, and you've got those on your screen that are also examples of had roof material changes. The areas where it would be proposed, the rear sections of the house presently already have that. And it would just be on the main house, replacing the non-original kind of slate that's failing and falling off, as if anything else that would be heavier could not be accommodated. So happy to answer any questions. I may let Mr. Walker speak for just a moment, if that's okay, and then wrap it up.
Thank you. Good evening, Trenton Walker. I'm a lawyer, but I'm here as a friend of Megan and Jordan. I'm around the street neighbor. I have a slate roof. I deal with my slate roof, but I don't have the problem that Megan and Jordan have. And we're not dealing with an instance where somebody didn't have the desire or the will to do the right thing. When they renovated this house, they did a glorious job, received a Carolopolis award, put the slate up. It's just been a chronic problem. And I have a little different perspective on this because my day job is as a lawyer. And I saw some of the slates that came down in the snowstorm. I've seen the other slates, and it's just dangerous. We can put guards up and do all kinds of things, but that danger's there, and we're on notice of it, and they're on notice of it. Could they come back with a bigger slate? Well, they can't come back with the thickest slate, as you saw from the Technica assessment by the engineer. That weight is 3 times the existing roof, and the existing roof won't hold it. It'd be like dropping a barbell on my grandmother or something. No, it's not going to work. So we ask that you consider the peculiar circumstances, because you have to deal with this. I understand as precedent, but this is an unusual situation where the house, they didn't buy a house with a slate roof. They bought a house with tarps. They put a slate roof on it, but there's no assurance that they can put another slate roof on it. They certainly can't put the thickest slate on it. And there may not be an intermediate slate they can put on it. And the simplest and the best solution is the copper roof, which has historical precedent. It's not as though they're trying to do something unusual that doesn't have historical precedent. So I just ask your consideration. I think these circumstances are much different from somebody who wants it out of convenience. They don't want it out of convenience. They'd far prefer to have a slate roof. They want it because they want a safe place for the children, for them, and for the neighbors. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? Or Eddie, did
May I
you?
ask one more? I have one more point. I'm sorry, I don't have another application. I do think it's important. We've also worked again very closely and chatted with Preservation Society and Historic Charleston Foundation. In each of these three instances, but they have told us and that they understand the situation or are sympathetic. So.
Is it the deflection that's causing the existing slate to crack?
No, it's literally what was selected was based on remnants that my friend Shirley had knocked over in the yard, and it was thin, and they went to the quarry in Virginia to find something as close as possible to do it. So it's not as much that, it's just brittle, and it's a thinner slate, and so we looked at the thicker, and then I think last time, respectfully to Phil Moore, and I hope he's feeling and doing much better, had said, well, what if it's not the heavy? What if it's the mid-range? Well, I've got another letter I could pass, but Cahill said, I still can't guarantee it. You know what I mean? I hate to say it. I still worry about it. The engineer said it still would be in a range that he'd have some concern about. And with all of those things, and the fact that it wasn't original, and the fact that it wasn't there when I got it, and the fact that it hadn't been there for 50 years, thought that it was certainly a valid request. One last thing and I'll wrap is, there was discussion last time too, and we did know the house across the street. It was built by same person, but a very different house. Now granted, it does have slate, but it's all there, and they bought it like that, it had it. But everything that's on this one is entirely new, and because it hadn't had slate for ages.
Any questions? Do we have anyone speaking? All right, Travis, give us these staff comments and recommendations, please.
All right, staff observation of the existing slate roof. The currently installed thickness of slate may not be adequate for the structure. This does not, however, mean that a slate roof of greater thickness than is currently installed, but less than 3/4 inch slate referred to in the engineering report could not be installed. A slate roof has historically existed on this structure, and there is no clear evidence of any other type of roof having been installed on this house. Per the 1886 earthquake report, Timberline House had a slate roof. While standing seam is period appropriate, no evidence has been presented that this structure ever had a standing seam metal roof in the past, so copper is speculative as a roof system for this structure. Also, term metal was historically much more common in Charleston than copper. Changing it to copper is not appropriate, especially for a Category 2 structure. Allowing this change sets a problematic precedent that because historically appropriate slate roofs are expensive and require regular maintenance, they should be abandoned for the convenience of the property owner. Staff recommendation is previous board motion has not been addressed.
Thank you, Travis. Eddie, your turn. Did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised during the public comment or a few staff comments?
If I may, just a couple specifically, and then let Trent follow up if he had, so appreciate it, the currently installed thickness may be adequate for the structure. Oh, okay, this is, I mean, very thick. But no, well, from the people that we're talking to, again, revisiting the engineer and Cahill, and again, I got that letter too, but he said his recommendation was to go back with the copper. The slate roof had existed on that, nobody's denying that, and we're not saying there was another type of roof on it. But much like some of those other examples that I've shown you, they were also slate roofs that had another type of roof installed on it. So I think that is valid. And that addresses number 4 too, is several of those structures I've shown you that are in that application had slate roofs and it had been changed to a standing seam metal or copper long ago. And again, very respectfully, I think it's really important to say that it does not set a precedent. If there's another house that has been sitting 50 years with tar paper on it that had no slate, and the slate that we're looking to remove is not original, or there's another house that then, yes, it would apply to that, but not to anybody that wants to. And case in point, we literally had, and it had no relationship to this, but 2 clients in different locations recently where their slate roofs were not in good condition. And they were just asking, having no indication that we were doing this, and we don't share projects between each other or other clients. I said, no go. I mean, it doesn't happen. It would have to be repaired and replaced with what's there and to match existing and use what's there. Because it doesn't set a precedent, doesn't have the same set of extenuating circumstances that we feel like this project does.
I just want to quickly come back to the suggestion that this is a matter of convenience. Not a matter of convenience. They have a slate roof up there, and the suggestion is that they can gamble, go out and spend a couple $100,000 on another slate roof with fingers crossed that'll work. And there's no assurance it's going to work. That roof structure is that engineering report says shows that it's not designed to carry these loads. It is not, the roof structure is not balanced on the interior walls. It just comes down to the side of the building. So I think it would be unfair and an imposition on them to make them experiment with whether there's an immediate slate that can work. Their heart is in the right place. And we just ask you to consider these unusual circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, public comment in the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and vote. Was for the November meeting, not for December. The new information to me here is that there was not a slate roof for a period of time.
I think I was at the December.
You,
I mean, I don't believe that this is a matter of convenience. I mean, the owners put a slate roof on there already, and so I don't think that they're trying to get away with cheaper options. I don't think this is a matter of convenience. Yeah, I wish Fillmore were here. I don't think a copper roof would be inappropriate. It would not be what was originally on there, but I'm not sure that it would be inappropriate.
To put a slate roof back on there, I guess the third floor is finished up, and you would have to, in my opinion, you'd have to take the drywall down, reinforce the rafters, reinforce collar ties to make the roof structurally stable for slate roof. So that if to repair it with a thicker slate, in my opinion, that's what you would have to do.
Even if it was a slightly thicker, not a three-quarter.
So that would be more of an engineer's question. But if it's popping off, there has to be some sort of movement.
That's what I was thinking. Is there some sort of deflection causing it to turn loose?
And there probably is, because from the engineering reports, the Raptors, I don't know if they're undersized, but they're old.
Yeah.
So they don't have the strength they originally did.
Eddie, the photos we saw of the attic space unfinished, no one knows the spacing on those.
They were plus or minus 20 inches.
Yeah.
Down center.
Yeah, we did check that. That was, the engineer checked that when they were looking at it. And then we also, they looked at the photo, but just to be sure, in the knee wall, we could get back under and check it as well. And if,
I guess so. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, again, I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak out of school district. You're exactly right. Mr. Cobb, we'd have to fur it down to do something, and that's kind of what everybody's telling us. If you do anything heavier, or even slightly heavier, just to be safe. But as you notice from those photos, I'm happy to put them back. It almost renders that space not as usable, because it doesn't have the kid bedrooms up there anymore. Ceiling height diminishes.
An engineer would have to figure out how to strengthen it up by scabbing additional material on and bracing it up properly.
I'm very sensitive to setting precedents with this board, which is why, and we've had a few slate roofs come before this board fairly recently, but we've said no. However, I am sensitive to the issue here. And again, I agree with Bill. I don't think this is any sort of wanting to replace it out of convenience, which is the other applications that we've seen. It's convenience and cost. We prefer to replace it with something else. But I'm swayed by the argument. We talk about the evolution of properties, and while not having any real roof at all is not necessarily part of the evolution. I mean, maybe it is. And the fact that there was a period of time that this didn't have the slate roof, they put one on. They've got some life safety concerns, which I know we aren't to consider, but I'm sympathetic here. So I'm on the fence.
I am too. I certainly understand their reasons and I can sympathize. But there are potentially other options. I know that Silcox at the College of Charleston recently had the same exact issue with structure. And the AR large required them to maintain the slate look. They used the Ludovici slate, which was half the weight, I think is what Chris told me. My husband worked on that project. It's not a perfect replacement for slate because it doesn't look exactly the same. But if we're worried about precedent, is it more important to maintain sort of the look of slate or just to say it doesn't matter?
Maybe where I was going here is that I can make the argument here that we are not setting a precedent by doing this because of the period of time that, you know, there was no, and I don't know if I would necessarily point to the fact that, well, they already installed a slate roof. I think I'm more looking at that. There's a period of how long where there was
30, 40,
no slate at all on the roof. So I don't think that we're setting a precedent here by allowing a different material.
I kind of agree. I mean, if this were another material, say somebody wants to replace their doorknob, we know it had a brass doorknob 200 years ago. Are we gonna make them go back and put a brass doorknob on it, or are we gonna let them put a different doorknob? Yeah, it's kind of like that, you know? It's, you know, there's been a long period of time that it's been missing, you know?
Do you want to ask Eddie a question?
Yes, Eddie.
I see your hand.
I know everybody, I'm sorry, because I know this is to you, but I know it's a difficult application for a lot of very good reasons. But in response to Ms. Altman's comment, we did look at the Ludovici tiles and fake tiles, I mean, artificial tile or whatever. And that was not a good thing to say, but the synthetic slate.
Terracotta made
Correct.
slate look.
But last board meeting too, I think there were board members that said they prefer we shy away from a false material, and we agree. I mean, everything that Megan and Jordan have done in that house is authentic. I mean, it's amazing. And again, no disrespect to anybody that's able to do that, but you're right, it does have a look. And I think we would go more for authenticity in that look rather than something artificial. So, but totally understand, just want to address, because you brought it up, I didn't want you to think we had to talk.
I do agree with that, and I thought maybe at the December meeting that I was not here, where board members may have said that they were in favor of authenticity. Just to preserve the look, I'm not in favor
I agree. I'm not
of
in
a
favor of
synthetic
using
material.
I have not used it. I am not that familiar with it. I know in Silcox it wasn't as visible.
Yeah, this is an awful big experiment to be experimenting with the synthetic slate.
And I feel like, and I think that we can argue that we're not setting a precedent here if the board is to vote to allow this replacement.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that during the project, I mean, you can see how much framing used to be in the attic, which was probably helping to support, you know, the slate up there. I mean, that was probably, it's just unfortunate that the engineering didn't really catch that deflection was going to be an issue. So I struggle with it. It's like a sister house to the house across the street. So
That's my struggle.
You know.
I'm comfortable with what you're talking about. I don't necessarily think we're setting precedent just because of the period of time that it had no sleep.
And we're sensitive to these slate roofs. We've denied every single one that's come before us that wanted to replace it.
But it's also funny that we're approving so much copper, which wasn't typically.
Yeah. No, I mean.
Now that we don't have the painted turn.
Bill, did you want to make a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion for it.
We have a motion on the floor for approval as submitted. Do we have a second? I typically do not do this, but when we have struggles like this, I will second the motion. put the motion to a vote. Laura?
I'm just make me go first. I'm gonna say no, I'm sorry.
Daryl?
No.
Becky?
I'm gonna know too.
Bill?
Yay.
And the chair votes in favor and the motion fails. We need a new motion.
Let me ask you this, you were getting back to copper was not originally, would not have been used in the time period that turned over. Would a painted copper. No, if people don't want to paint copper, I mean, I wouldn't want to paint copper. But it would give you the look of a painted turned roof.
It's hard when you have a house that had a slate roof. It's similar to the slate roof across the street.
I just feel like there are a lot of slate roofs on houses that, it's fine. They require maintenance. I'm not saying this is an issue of inconvenience or convenience, but there's a lot of slate roofs that are okay. So maybe it's the particular product from 2018.
Still think we get back to it's a big gamble to just.
I think copper is a better solution than a synthetic slate.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, back to Bill's question to Becky and maybe ask of everyone else what a painted copper roof. Or is it, or are your votes just based on you would prefer the slate to stay?
Give you something closer to that period.
Right. I don't feel comfortable enough to vote yes yet, I guess, is why I said no to start with. So I understand copper is a better solution. I understand, and I've done it on my own projects where sometimes a historic material, just because it's historic, wasn't the best for the preservation, the long-term durability of a project or a building. So I'm trying to, my head's still, maybe don't ask me first next time.
Sarah, what about you? Are you just in favor of slate or is there any other material?
My struggle is it was slate originally and it has the sister building across the street that's slate and they seem to complement each other real well. That's my struggle.
I think you can also argue that sister houses aren't always identical sisters.
And this one isn't. That's a good point.
But you don't want to vote first? Just kidding.
I want this house to survive. I want it to be. I want it to be here 100 years from now, not have forever be fighting this problem.
And one other thing the owners have done is put a massive preservation effort into this building as it is.
It has a roof on it now.
Yes.
I mean, the fact that they put the slate roof back on in 2018, I'm sympathetic in this case. And again, I just want to reiterate, I don't think this is convenient. And I love slate roofs and when I see people wanting to remove them, and I think the original application before we had additional information, it was no. Put it back. But I'm sympathetic here and especially just knowing what the homeowners have done.
I think I'm gonna change my vote,
Do you want to make a motion or do you want Bill to revive his motion?
just revise Bill's.
Bill, would you like to?
I'll make a motion for approval with the condition that the copper be painted. And generally, the color that would have been used in that time period would have been Jenner's red.
Is that something the board has done before?
No.
We actually were just asked to do that, I think, somebody asked us to do that and we said no.
Right.
Because we didn't want the roof to be painted, but that was a totally different situation. We're actually trying to.
Well, I don't know that copper's a pure material, so painting it
Can you just?
makes it
remind
more
me?
impure.
Oh, yeah, I thought I was trying to tease. I will make the motion for approval as submitted.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for approval as submitted. Do I need to second Bill's? I'll second Bill's motion once again. Okay, we'll put the motion to a vote. Daryl,
Yeah, in favor.
Becky,
No opposed.
Laura. Yeah. Bill,
Yeah, in favor.
and the chair votes the majority and the motion passes 4-4 and 1 against. Thank you all.
Sorry, I know that we're, but appreciate you all. Oh, thank you.
Thought we'd be out of here at 7:30, I guess, strong. Agenda item 14, 351 King Street. Travis,
Yes.
take it away.
351 King Street is in a council district 8, a category 4, circa 1888 in the Alden Historic District. They are requesting conceptual approval to remove existing metal storefront vestibule, place with stained natural wood storefront, repair and repaint facade and fabric awnings over vestibule. We have an aerial. Current storefront on King. A 1973 photo. Sanborn maps. And we're ready for the applicant's presentation.
Evening. I'm hoping this one's a little easier than the last.
Me too.
Nick Hennig, representing Brian Felder and Associates. We are intending to renovate and refresh the ground floor level of this two-story building with synthetic and compatible materials as a new tenant plans to move in. A similar structure has been on this plot of land since 1888, with earliest photograph that you just saw there at 1972. The building's overall shape and structure has ultimately stayed the same since that photo was taken. These slides kind of showcase the examples around historic Charleston. We also showcase the rotating storefront that we call the recipe for this area. And regardless of the building's historical significance, that recipe is very evident, I think, in downtown Charleston. Here are some existing site conditions showing the front facade and interior. Context photos that you just saw as well. No site work is planned for this proposal. With the exception of that front metal storefront being planned to be removed. We don't see it as contributing or really worthy of considering to be restored. Instead, we plan to utilize wood as our main material. We see that as appropriate and suitable for both our new tenant as well as this area of King Street. There's no interior work for the second floor nor the roof. in our proposal or in our scope. Here you can see the removal of the aluminum storefront and that center bump out that's in that portal. We plan to have 4 equally sized wood panels, as you see on the right. The intent is to also have a flat signage above a canvas awning for that. No work is planned for the rear of the building. Colored rendering showing a approved neutral color, which will determine at a later date to cover the existing pink facade addition.
Any questions for the applicant? Thank you. No one is speaking,
We're all in.
only the applicant. Travis?
All right, staff observation, signage and the canopy will be reviewed separately. The canopy will require an encroachment permit. The proposed storefront is nicely detailed and appropriate for the streetscape. Staff condition for approval. We suggest pulling the new facade forward to the back of the existing pilaster. And all recommendation is conceptual approval with preliminary and final review by staff.
Thank you, Travis. Mr. Hennig, did you want to respond to or clarify anything? Yeah, absolutely.
My name is Brian Felder. I'm Nick's boss. From an architectural standpoint, we would not mind pulling that facade forward to the back of the masonry portal. River Street Suites sells crack. They will clog the street. We don't give them a little bit of space. What we've found in other towns is that little bit of the reason for this whole change is we need double doors. Leaving that little bit of a vestibule under canopy keeps the humans who are addicted to this crack off the street. This is done thoughtfully based on, I don't know how many how many stores River Street Suites has done, but same thing in Savannah and other historic. It's better off to pull it from an architectural standpoint. We really would be okay with moving it, but we would recommend you leave the space. This is kind of systematic. That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you. All right, public comment in the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
I was gonna say something similar, that I respectfully disagree with staff. From walking along there, it's narrow as it is. It's nice to have that.
Yeah.
Like leave it where it's already aligned.
And to visually have a little bit of difference, because
But I don't think the awning is necessary because you've already got cover. And I think that if we go back to just a straight on elevation, maybe not the colored one, the drawing one would be easier to read. But this panel needs to match the rest of these.
Say it again.
This window panel needs to, like, the lines, the panel needs to line up with the door panels, that sort of thing. I think those are the only notes that I had.
That was probably just an oversight.
Well, I did have one other question, sorry. On the photographs, that old one you have and on the current ones, there's a band of stucco above the alcove.
It's metal. We think it's probably an old channel for a lit sign. Or it's
Oh,
hiding
are you
something.
planning to remove it then?
Yes.
Okay,
Unless it ends up being something structural, and we'll review that with staff.
okay.
The awning is probably needs to be a contentious point until we go back to the franchisor. This thing, it's part of the brand.
It's part of our trademark, I think, and we'll have to.
Well, it looks like there've been awnings there. I mean,
See awnings on both sides.
There's awnings everywhere there.
Yeah, this is kind of I think it's a nice storefront design, but this is just kind of a observation. It doesn't really match what's up on the second. It's kind of like you're doing two different things. Any thought on maybe changing the window fenestration up there? Because we know this one is not
So-
original, this.
So I agree with you.
Facade.
Right, and it does, it's not changing with the facade we're proposing down below, but I don't know if we have the purview.
Okay.
We are simply the tenant of the ground floor.
Gotcha.
And what I thought about perhaps is maybe painting it the color of the storefront
Like
so that it
anything
goes
would have-
away or complements a little bit.
Yeah.
But we don't think we have the purview to do that.
Okay, okay.
But I will just repeat. Can you go back? I don't know how to do that. Can you go back to the one with the awnings, the streetscape? Please. We have awnings all around us, and the awning is part of River Street Suites brand experience, so that we have to kick that upstairs, but it's really important that that be there. Just saying.
Did you say we have, that's a separate
It
review?
will be reviewed separately.
Yeah.
Okay.
It needs an encroachment permit.
In permitting,
Does that
in
mean-
terms of your review, it can be
Oh,
included,
we
but
review
in
it.
terms of permitting, it will be separate, just like signage is permitted separate.
There are so many awnings on that street, and it's a temporary structure, 100 years from now, there'll be 10 other awnings, so.
Or did you want to make a motion? Daryl?
I'll make a motion for conceptual approval with staff comments.
Did you want that staff comment? Because it says suggest pulling a new facade forward.
Oh, no, take that back. And for them to align the panels at the front facade.
And then preliminary and final at staff. Okay, we have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with a board condition to align the window panels with the front facade. It was the window panels, right? With preliminary and final review by staff. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Bill, motion to vote. Laura,
Yay in favor.
Becky,
Yay in favor.
Daryl,
Yeah, in favor.
Bill.
Yeah, in favor.
Chair votes the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, please.
Do I have a second?
Yes, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Y'all driving back to Savannah tonight?
We are.
Where's
the closest coffee shop?
Sorry you were last on the list.
First. This is an early meeting, so.
We saw 500 towers, is what we expected.
If you go across the street to Saffron, they have coffee and dessert. Right.
I've got a question before the board goes. So on the slate roof, after we voted the first time, why didn't we keep that going?
Because we had no motion, the motion failed, so there, it's just, we're back to square
I
one.
put it online.
We have to have some motion that passes, whether that's, it's not an automatic.
Next motion